Chapter 68, Milky Way City. After the battle at the North Sea and his rebirth in the depths of the lake, the death aura was completely dispelled. As he walked through the wind and snow, not a sliver of it emanated. The fact that the black aura, which had encircled him for more than a month, was now gone, made Meng Hao's pace a bit more leisurely as he moved through the snowfall. Snow fell more heavily, seeming like the year's final and heaviest snowstorm. Snowflakes appeared pushed along by the incoming season, falling fast. The snow covered him until he reached the cave in Mount Dacheng where he'd been taken from years before. He sat cross-legged, looking out at the world of snow and listening to the cry of the wind. Night fell. Snowfall blocked the night sky, making it impossible to see the stars. The only things visible were the endless sheets of snow which covered the landscape. A small bonfire burned in front of Meng Hao, illuminating the surroundings with flickering firelight. The light fell onto his face as he sat there thinking. Nearly 4 years had passed. It was almost 4 years since he'd joined the Reliance sect. He had started as a youth and grown into a young man. He was now 20 years old. Meng Hao sat there looking down at his hands. They were clean, without a spot of dirt, but he knew without doubt they were stained with blood. He had killed many times in the past 4 years. At first it had caused him much tribulation. Now, though not numb, he had come to accept it. He had adapted. It was as if some invisible force of heaven and earth had changed his spirit, fate, and future. What will I become in the end? Meng Hao looked out at the snow outside of the cave, but it contained no answers. Time passed slowly. Soon dawn approached. Everything was pitch black, only the whimpering of the wind and frigid snow. The bonfire slowly burned out and the cave was consumed by darkness. Meng Hao sat there in the dark, and a sense of deep loneliness filled his heart. The feeling grew stronger and stronger until it seemed as if it would consume him. "Father, mother, where are you?" His voice was soft as he thought of his parents. He missed them so much. "Fatty, what are you doing now?" Meng Hao sighed, imagining Fatty filing away at his teeth. "Elder sister Sue, elder brother Chen, you are in the southern domain. How wonderful." He looked out at the dark night, almost as if he could see the southern domain. An absent-minded expression filled his face. "Reading hundreds of books is like traveling 10,000 roads. One day I will leave the state of Zhao and go to the southern domain." A look of determination appeared in his eyes. The state of Zhao was on the very edge of the southern domain. The middle of the southern domain was very, very far away. He remembered the map he had seen of the lands of South Heaven. There was a vast wilderness between the state of Zhao and the core of the southern domain, as well as several countries. At his current cultivation level, traveling by soaring would take an incredibly long time. If only I could become a foundation establishment stage cultivator. Fire burned in his eyes, a fierce longing to fly in the sky, and a thirst to reach foundation establishment. Reaching foundation establishment means being a true cultivator. Then my longevity will extend to 150 years. Extended life was a distant concept for Meng Hao. Usually people wish for longevity only when older. Now, he cared most about continuing to live and avoiding danger. Unless one wants to live an average life, one must accept the limitations of one's cultivation base and latent talent, and fight on. Meng Hao breathed deeply and looked out as dawn broke over the world. He pulled out Ding Zin's bag of holding and looked over its contents. His eyes began to glitter. He really was the disciple of a great sect. Even though he hadn't reached the foundation establishment stage, he was filthy rich. There were 7,000 or 8,000 spirit stones inside, as well as the black wooden bow. When he pulled the bow out, his entire body felt cold. Pulling back on the bowstring felt as if the spiritual energy of heaven and earth were drawn into it. Inside were several hundred black arrows, each carved with strange markings. In addition to spirit stones and treasured items were pill bottles, message plaques, and other random items. Most pill bottles were empty. However, one small sealed bottle caught Meng Hao's attention. When he heard the pill rattling inside, his heart thumped. He broke the seal, and a thick, fragrant odor buffeted his face. The entire cave filled with medicinal aroma. This aroma seemed stronger than a heavenly spirit pill and stronger than his most powerful pill, the plateau charging pill. There was no way to compare them, like comparing a firefly with a full moon, a tiny sapling with a mighty tree. "This is..." Meng Hao's eyes shone and he breathed quickly. He turned the bottle over and dropped the pill onto his palm. It was about the size of his thumbnail, the color of amber. It emanated powerful fragrance and boundless spiritual energy. At a glance, this was no ordinary item. He stared at the pill for a moment. then tapped his bag of holding, retrieving the ancient pill named Jade slip he had purchased at the 100 Treasures Pavilion. There were more cracks on its surface than before, although Meng Hao didn't seem to care. Pressing the Jade slip against his forehead, he poured spiritual energy into it. A moment later, the ancient jade split and collapsed into ash. Meng Hao opened his eyes, glowing with powerful excitement. A foundation establishment pill. It's hard to determine how much it's worth. Palpitating with eagerness, he clutched the pill against his chest. His heart raced, and it took time to calm down. This foundation establishment pill was one reason Ding Xin couldn't believe he would die. Made by his master and gifted to him, it was meant for when he reached the critical juncture of breaking through from the 9th level of qi condensation to foundation establishment. Even in great sects, foundation establishment pills were uncommon and rarely distributed to disciples. Most people couldn't establish a foundation with only one pill. Usually 2 or 3 were needed. Some with average talent but sect elder support might break through with 5. Foundation establishment pills were truly treasured. Perhaps this had something to do with the fact that 2 of the medicinal plants required to concoct the pill only grew in the 3 danger zones in the southern domain. Ding Xin had an exceptional master, which gave him a special position within the Violet Fate sect. When he had reached the 9th level of qi condensation, his master had bestowed him with the foundation establishment pill. If he failed in breaking through to the next stage, when he returned to the sect, his master would not hesitate to give him another. Meng Hao opened his hand and looked closely at the foundation establishment pill. He noticed a strange seal on its surface. The seal bore the image of a demonic face, expressionless and solemn, imparting the feeling that the face was looking at you. Meng Hao's heart thumped. Upon further observation, he determined the seal had no mystical properties. It was simply carved onto the surface, like a logo. Meng Hao hesitated for a while, then clenched his teeth and put the pill away. Outside, the snowfall was growing lighter, and the rising sun was just becoming visible. He stepped onto the treasured fan and flew out into the cold. To break through from the 8th level of qi condensation to the 9th, I need more spirit stones. What I have now isn't enough. Eyes glittering, he slapped his bag of holding and produced a jade slip, pressing it against his forehead. This was a jade slip from the Cold Wind sect, a map that depicted several of the cultivator cities within the state of Zhao. Meng Hao saw Eastern Refinement City, but he had no desire to go back there. He needed to go somewhere far away from there, to a place not controlled by the 3 great sects, a place where the cultivators would be more random. Milky Way City, Meng Hao muttered. Having decided, he raised his head, eyes flashing, and soared ahead as fast as the wind. In the direction of the Milky Way Sea was an area protected by spells, invisible to mortals, within which was a city. Its walls were black, and were patrolled by cold-faced, black-robed cultivators. They stared out at the people coming in and out of the city. Milky Way City had existed for 300 years, established by an eccentric with core formation cultivation base who then entered secluded meditation. No one knew if he was alive or dead. It didn't matter, either he'd extended his longevity or begun forming his nascent soul. Currently, the city was controlled by his descendants. Patriarch Milky Way had maintained good relations with the 3 great sects of the state of Zhao. Coupled with the city's relaxed rules, this had made it grow into the bustling place it was, filled with people of all sorts. One day, a person appeared outside Milky Way City. He wore a black robe, his face covered by a wide bamboo hat. His features were indistinguishable, though his body seemed a bit pudgy. His getup looked strange but attracted no attention in Milky Way City, where strange people of all sorts gathered. Many didn't want others knowing who they were or what they were doing. Of course, this person was none other than Meng Hao. He had decided to sell some of his magical items and medicinal pills. Disguised, he strolled through the city gates looking around. His eyes narrowed. He immediately lowered his head and, putting on a nonchalant air, entered a shop. Chapter 69, Young Lord Ding. Xianxia Audiobook, garbed in a black robe, frowned as he walked down the street in Milky Way City. 2 cultivators of the 7th level of qi condensation, also in black robes, walked behind him. They seemed to admire him quite a bit. Accompanying Xianxia Audiobook in his inspection of the city, they walked past the shop Meng Hao had just ducked into. Meng Hao's expression was the same as ever. Even if it wasn't, no one would have been able to see anyway, because of the wide bamboo hat that covered his face. His gaze swept around the place he had entered. It was a pill shop, only 1 story high and not very large. Racks filled with pill bottles. The bottles were obviously empty, though each bore a pill name and price. A young man sat cross-legged in the corner. Only he and Meng Hao were in the shop. Meng Hao walked along, examining the names of the various medicinal pills. Eventually, he found a bottle upon which was written the characters Earthly Spirit Pill. It instantly caught his eye. So it's worth 300 spirit stones. Meng Hao frowned. The copper mirror required 200 spirit stones to duplicate an earthly spirit pill. Although there was a bit of difference in the two prices, it wasn't very much. Seeing Meng Hao muttering to himself, the man sitting cross-legged in the corner opened his eyes and coolly said, "Earthly spirit pills are from the southern domain. We don't have many in stock, only 5. Meng Hao nodded. Looking around one final time, he made to leave, but then suddenly stopped. "Do you happen to have Foundation establishment pills?" When the man heard this, he smiled with a barely perceptible air of doubt. "Fellow Taoist, this must be your first time in Milky Way City. Foundation establishment pills can easily run over 100,000 spirit stones. They are truly precious. Unfortunately, we have none in stock. I've only seen one in my life. If you're interested in purchasing one, go to the Milky Way workshop." "So expensive," said Meng Hao, his voice filled with awe. Hearing his tone, the young man's doubt disappeared. He could tell Meng Hao was simply inquiring and didn't have the resources to make such a purchase. Hearing Meng Hao mutter enviously about Foundation establishment pills, the young man ignored him and closed his eyes. Meng Hao left and moved down the streets of Milky Way City, his eyes shining. Moments later, he frowned. Selling pills and magical items wouldn't be simple, and there was Xianxia Audiobook. He was wearing a black robe accompanied by black-robed cultivators. Those robes matched the city guards. After leaving the Reliance sect, he didn't join another sect but came here. Meng Hao lowered his head. Instead of leaving, he continued strolling through the city, checking shop after shop. His frown deepened. Pills for every qi condensation level were available here. Though few in stock, prices weren't much higher than duplication costs. The profit margin would be low. "Forget medicinal pills. I'll check magical items." Meng Hao turned down a different street. Cultivators of various levels came and went, most between the 3rd and 5th. Meng Hao had seen only 3 at the 8th level like him. Their faces were covered. Many treasure pavilions were here. Meng Hao visited them one by one, carefully examining their wares. Soon evening fell. Meng Hao sighed. Low-level items fetched high prices, but nothing near the 100,000 spirit stones he needed. Selling 1,000 flying swords would attract unwanted attention. His other items varied in price, but none alone would earn that many spirit stones. Selling all would attract too much attention. What he wanted to do was handle everything at once, then leave immediately. Meng Hao sat cross-legged in an inn room. "If I want to sell the Foundation establishment pill, I have to be very careful," he said quietly. "I can't act rashly." Milky Way City wasn't very big. By the evening of the second day, he'd explored it all. Finally, he stood across from a luxuriously decorated building. Muttering to himself, he walked toward it. An inscribed board above the main door read, "Milky Way Workshop." It was 3 stories tall. Meng Hao wandered the first floor but was prevented from going up to the second. Access required evidence of a large number of spirit stones. Meng Hao didn't force the issue. He turned and walked around for a bit looking at things as if he were just an ordinary customer. Finally, he left. He sat cross-legged in the inn, frowning. One door guarded by 3 8th level and 1 9th level cultivator. I can't go up or see past the stairs. Everything on the first level is ordinary without spiritual energy. I need to know what's on the second level. The windows show an abundance of spiritual energy, but they're sealed tight. After a moment, he pulled out the copper mirror. In his bag of holding, he currently had just a bit over 10,000 spirit stones. Gritting his teeth, he took out the Foundation establishment pill and placed it onto the copper mirror. It instantly sank into the mirror, disappearing. With a deep breath, Meng Hao began feeding spirit stones into the mirror. When he put the 10,000 spirit stone into the mirror, a bright light shone out, and a second Foundation establishment pill appeared. Prepared, he quickly put the 2 pills into his bag of holding as the aroma began to spread. His speed kept barely any aroma from escaping. No one noticed. He sat cross-legged on the bed, eyes filled with thought. After a moment, he slapped his bag of holding and produced a long, white robe from Ding Zin's belongings. He put it on and hung Ding Zin's Jade identification slip around his neck. He paced back and forth, looking thoughtful. At dawn 2 days later, Meng Hao donned the bamboo hat and a long outer garment concealing the white robe. Lowering his head, he left the inn. He strode directly toward the Milky Way workshop, arriving quickly. A cold-faced middle-aged man sat cross-legged, a ninth-level cultivator. Meng Hao walked past him, heading toward the stairs. An eighth-level cultivator glanced at him. "Show a minimum of 10,000 spirit stones to access the second level," he said. "Beat it," said Meng Hao, lifting his bamboo hat and glaring at the man threateningly. He filled his voice with as much arrogance as possible. "We're in a small town in the insignificant state of Zhao, and you dare to block the path of Ding Xin." All of the cultivators in the room looked at him. The eighth-level cultivator stared in shock. No one had ever spoken to him that way, but the arrogance and veiled threats in Meng Hao's words made him hesitate. The pleasant voice of a woman drifted down from upstairs. "Young Lord Ding, please come up." The cultivator let Meng Hao pass. With a cold snort, he climbed the stairs. As he turned the corner, his eyes quickly scanned the second floor. The pleasant voice belonged to a woman wearing a gauzy dress. She smiled at Meng Hao. The second floor was richly decorated, far more magnificent than the first, filled with a dazzling aura. Instead of racks, an enormous incense burner sat in the middle, so large 3 people could place their arms around it. Thick incense aroma wafted out. The surroundings were luxurious but also refined. Several tables could be seen around the room, as well as ornamental rock displays. It was the type of place that would make one's eyes shine just upon seeing it. The woman appeared to be about 30 years old, elegant and poised. She simply smiled at first, seeming very warm and considerate. "Young Lord Ding," she said, looking him over casually, "please have a seat. I'm the second-floor attendant. Please tell me how I can help." She took a seat off to the side. When she caught sight of the white robe under his garment, a look of surprise flickered in her eyes, then quickly disappeared. Meng Hao looked around thoughtfully. There were 7 tables spread about in various positions. Without hesitation, Meng Hao chose to sit, not at a table next to the stairs or a window, but right in the middle of the room. "Do you have foundation establishment pills?" he said as he sat down, not beating around the bush. His expression was somber. When the woman saw him sit down where he did, her eyes flickered again, as if he had just confirmed something to her. And yet, she still seemed to be uncertain about something. "There are not many things in the state of Zhao that we don't have here at the Milky Way workshop," she said with a smile. "Of course we have foundation establishment pills. The price is 200,000 spirit stones per pill." Meng Hao nodded slightly, then slapped his bag of holding. A pill bottle appeared in his hand. He flicked his sleeve and the bottle shot toward the woman. Her eyes flickered as she caught the bottle. When she opened it and looked at the contents, her expression changed to one of surprise. "One foundation establishment pill," said Meng Hao coolly. "Name your price." "Young Lord Ding, you are quite audacious," she said calmly, an unusual expression in her eyes. "You dare hand me something so valuable. Don't you fear I might take it and flee?" Meng Hao stared at her coldly, loosening his garment to reveal more of the white robe and the jade medallion around his neck. It was violet-colored and emitted a soft, flickering violet glow. When she caught sight of the jade medallion, the woman's expression changed. "If you dare to swallow that pill," said Meng Hao coldly, "Milky Way City will be reduced to rubble in less than a month." The woman's expression changed several times as she looked at the pill bottle, then at Meng Hao. Having taken note of all the clues, she finally smiled again. "Young Lord Ding, please don't take offense. I was simply making conversation." She tipped the bottle, sending the foundation establishment pill tumbling into her palm. She held it up and examined it closely. When her gaze fell upon the demonic face carved into it, her expression changed dramatically, and she stood up. This chapter was sponsored by Crystal Riva. Chapter 70, Breaking Through to the 9th Level of Qi Condensation. This pill was concocted personally by Grandmaster Pill Demon of the Violet Fate Sect. "Young Lord Ding, what is your relationship to Grandmaster Pill Demon?" "Name your price." He said nothing else. He frowned, his eyes filled with a look that made it seem as if whether he wanted to or not, he had no choice but to sell the pill. A pill personally concocted by Grandmaster Pill Demon could fetch an amazing price. This pill, the woman hesitated, then seemed to decide. "I can give you 250,000 spirit stones." Meng Hao was silent for a moment. Finally he nodded and said, "Done." He stood up. The woman lifted her hand and flicked her finger toward the incense burner. A clear and melodious sound rang out, and 10 seconds later, a young girl came down from the 3rd floor bearing a jade platter. She quickly reached Meng Hao and offered up the platter. On the white jade platter was a bag of holding. Meng Hao took it and looked inside. then turned and walked down the stairs. Amidst the gazes of the cultivators on the first floor, he walked out of the Milky Way workshop and off into the distance. When he reached a less crowded place, he ducked into an alley and stripped off the garment. He quickly changed into another robe and made his way off, his head lowered. Meanwhile, on the second floor, the woman stood respectfully next to an old man in a resplendent garment, standing at the window and looking into the distance. In his hand was the foundation establishment pill Meng Hao had sold. A long time passed before he finally opened his mouth. "Are you sure?" he said coolly. "I've the junior generation already did some checking," she said in a respectful tone. "There was indeed a Violet Fate sect disciple surnamed Ding who arrived recently in the state of Zhao." "Are you sure that was him?" said the old man slowly. "At first I was uncertain. After all, Ding Xin is of the 9th level, and this person was of the 8th. However, his arrogant behavior on the first floor seemed like a disciple of a great sect. This was the first clue. Upon reaching the second floor, he sat in the middle of the room, not near the window or stairs. This shows confidence, as if he didn't care if we moved against him. Such confidence is impossible for an 8th-level cultivator unless they're from a powerful sect. That was the second clue. Moments later, I saw his white garments and a jade pendant from the Violet Fate sect. He revealed it intentionally, but in the state of Zhao he has to take precautions. This was the third clue. More telling, he gave the pill bottle directly to me, as if he didn't care whether I might consume it. His response to my inquiry was one a state of Zhao sect member could never match. This was the fourth clue. Finally, the Foundation Establishment pill bears the seal of Grandmaster Pill Demon. No one would counterfeit such a pill. I've researched such things, and am certain the seal is genuine. Because of these 5 clues, I'm certain this person was Ding Xin of the Violet Fate sect. Grandmaster Pill Demon accepted a novitiate with that name 2 years ago. The person here was him. The woman smiled with confidence, shrewdness, and intelligence. Unless, she suddenly seemed to hesitate. "Unless what?" asked the old man, turning to look at her, his expression both warm and encouraging. "Unless the person today was incredibly intelligent and purposefully did all this. Perhaps he created the perfect cover and the seal is fake, but that's remote. No disciple of the so-called sects of the state of Zhao could accomplish it." The woman smiled with confidence. "Correct," said the old man. "Being able to sort through all these clues in this way shows how intelligent you are, Mar. It seems you've really grown sharper in the past few years. This medicinal pill is real. It seems 80 to 90% likely that this person was none other than Ding Xin." He looked fondly at the woman. "Many thanks for your praise, Patriarch," she said with a smile. Looking up at him, she asked, "Are you really going to let him go just like that?" "We cannot afford to cause trouble with the Violet Fate sect. As for Grandmaster Pill Demon's Foundation Establishment pill." The old man seemed to think for a moment before softly saying, "Mar, considering that your latent talent is ordinary, why don't you give the pill to your father?" When she heard his words, her eyes suddenly flashed. "He's back," her voice suddenly seemed grim. "He came back a few months ago. He left years ago to join the Reliance sect, but it was disbanded. As usual, he hasn't reached Foundation Establishment. You should see him." The old man looked at the woman, frowned, then sighed. She was quiet for a moment. "I have my responsibilities here," she said coldly. "Whoever Patriarch gives the Foundation Establishment pill to doesn't involve me. He's your father. Furthermore, he seems to have weighty matters on his mind and might leave soon. Think carefully." The old man shook his head and left. "Father," Shangyuan Mu sat down quietly, looking out the window, her eyes filled with bitterness. As for Meng Hao, after changing clothes, he left the black-walled Milky Way city without hesitation. Some distance away, he hopped onto the treasured fan and sped off, his body turning into a prismatic rainbow. He kept going for several days, until it became apparent that no one was pursuing him. At that point, he felt a bit more relaxed. In the wilderness some distance away from Mount Daqing, he used a flying sword to cut out an immortal's cave for himself, and then entered into secluded meditation. He was determined to break through to the 9th level of Qi condensation. He had plenty of spirit stones which he could use to duplicate heavenly spirit pills. When he consumed enough heavenly spirit pills, and his cultivation base reached the appropriate level, he would begin to push toward the next level. Soon, several months passed. Meng Hao didn't leave the immortal's cave. He sat cross-legged, consuming pills and circulating his cultivation base. As time passed, his cultivation base grew more refined. By the 5th month it seemed boundless. His cultivation base roared and his core sea roiled. He'd reached the peak of the 8th level. He was only a sliver away from the 9th, yet had been stuck there for 2 months. Thinking about the over 100,000 spirit stones he had spent already made Meng Hao's heart hurt. But what hurt even more was that, after spending all of those spirit stones, he still hadn't been able to break through. Elder Su told me the 4th, 6th, and 8th levels were bottlenecks. I broke through the 4th with dry spirit pills. I broke through the 6th when the North Sea demonstrated the Tao. Now I'm at the 8th level bottleneck. How do I break through? Meng Hao opened his bloodshot eyes. Of the well over 200,000 spirit stones he'd had, only about 50,000 now remained. The rest had been turned into heavenly spirit pills. Currently, he was running low on heavenly spirit pills as well. As he had speculated, when relying only on medicinal pills to grow his cultivation base, the effects grew weaker and weaker the more pills he consumed. He needed larger and larger amounts, a vicious cycle. I wonder what other people do in this situation, he thought, frowning. Despite pondering the situation over and over, he couldn't figure it out. No matter how many heavenly spirit pills he consumed, or how much his cultivation base grew, he couldn't make that final step. Another month passed. Meng Hao had been in secluded meditation for half a year. Today he sat with hair in disarray, eyes bloodshot. In the past month he duplicated 10 plateau charging pills, supposedly effective for the 9th level. He hoped they'd break through the bottleneck. While somewhat effective, they hadn't produced the desired result. I must reach the 9th level of qi condensation. He ground his teeth as he looked at what remained of his 50,000 spirit stones. Not hesitating any longer, he took out the copper mirror. He had decided to duplicate the Foundation Establishment pill. A glow appeared, and 2 Foundation Establishment pills emerged. Including the original, he now had 3. A disciple of a great sect in the southern domain would gasp with astonishment. In the state of Zhao, it would cause a bloodbath if anyone saw them. Today, Meng Hao would use these pills, not to reach Foundation Establishment, but to break through the bottleneck. Anyone who knew he was using the pills in this way would surely go crazy at the thought of such luxurious waste. Through history, there were likely few people who would ever go to such extravagant lengths to break through a qi condensation bottleneck. Meng Hao took a deep breath, lifted a pill, put it in his mouth, and swallowed. A thunderous roar filled his mind. A majestic spiritual energy he'd never imagined filled and exploded throughout his body. During his half-year in secluded meditation, events occurred that he was unaware of, affecting the entire state of Zhao. The first was the wildfire-like spread of news about Meng Hao's deal with the Violet Fate sect disciples. Soon, Meng Hao's name was known across the land. Everyone knew that Meng Hao had mercilessly cheated the Violet Fate sect. Soon after, the Cold Wind sect and the Winding Stream sect nearly declared war. In the end, core formation priests emerged and calmed things down. Shortly after, the 2 sects issued a joint arrest order. The evildoer Meng Hao of the Reliance sect was now wanted. Anyone who killed him would receive a reward of spirit stones, medicinal pills, and magical items. This was the first time in hundreds of years that 2 great sects had joined together to issue an order of arrest. This news caused a great sensation in the cultivation world of the state of Zhao. No one knew how to track the man who caused the bloody silver spear incident, but he was marked for punishment, and news spread quickly. Soon, Meng Hao was again the subject of discussion among all cultivators of the state of Zhao. Whenever cultivators gathered, they would end up talking about Meng Hao. I heard when he was in the Reliance sect, he robbed Wang Tengfei, someone from a great clan of the southern domain. When Meng Hao joined the inner sect, Wang Tengfei left in a rage. That's nothing. I heard directly from some former Reliance sect members that Meng Hao opened a shop there. He ripped off a lot of his fellow disciples. They were all furious, of course, but didn't dare to say anything. Wow, it seems he's been developing this devious personality for quite a while. It's no surprise he cheated the Violet Fate sect disciples, as well as Liu Daiyun and Sun Hua. He rips off whoever he runs into. He's been cheating people since leaving the Reliance sect. Such conversations filled the cultivation world of the state of Zhao. The buzz would have died out, but before it could, the 3 great sects joined forces to recall the arrest order and issue a new one. No discernible reason for this action appeared. The new arrest order was still for Meng Hao. However, killing him was now prohibited. Rewards would now be given, not for his death but for his capture or clues regarding his whereabouts. According to the order, he could be injured or crippled, but not killed. Such a strange arrest order instantly aroused the attention of quite a few people. Eventually, Some of the most well-informed people were able to put the clues together to understand what was going on. The core formation eccentrics of the three great sects visited the State of Revelation last month. They asked Lord Revelation to divine whether Patriarch Reliance is really dead. According to his divination, Patriarch Reliance is weak to the point of death. However, only an inner sect disciple can open the Immortal's cave where he meditates. Lord Revelation is here with them in the state of Zhao, searching for where Patriarch Reliance is sealed. As soon as news began to spread, the three great sects went to great lengths to suppress it. Anyone spreading rumors would face death penalty, and any city where rumors appeared would be enveloped by a sealing spell, preventing anyone from going in or out. Chapter 71, Donghu. In the remote wilderness not too far from Mount Daqing, Meng Hao sat in the Immortal's cave, his body shaking. Sweat poured off him, emanating intense heat that produced a thick mist circulating around the cave, filling it with the aroma of sweat. Meng Hao's entire body was bright red, as if an immense fire raged within him, threatening to wither his flesh and blood and turn him to ash. His body was stiff, incapable of movement. This was a detriment of consuming a Foundation establishment pill. After swallowing it, the body became immovable. Until the pill's power disseminated, it mattered not if there was flood or storm, or if a person stood before you with sword drawn, you would not move a muscle. Thus cultivators were careful when selecting where to consume a Foundation establishment pill. If one encountered an enemy during this period, death was certain. Meng Hao was the first to consume a Foundation establishment pill at the 8th level of qi condensation, and it had been concocted by a grandmaster. He had no other choice. Breaking through the 8th level required either great fortune or special medicinal pills. The plateau charging pills had failed, so Foundation establishment pills were his only option. He didn't dare use too many at once. They were powerful, and his body was not. Consuming them was gambling with his life. Meng Hao felt certain of why this bottleneck was so difficult. It had to do with his years of consuming demonic cores. Despite his rebirth in the North Sea, the demonic power in his bones resisted dispelling. Thus the bottleneck's resistance was thicker than for others. Yet this brought advantages too. Once he broke through, he would surge into the middle of the 9th level of qi condensation. His body, though weak in appearance, was much tougher than during his scholar days, a slow but steady change. This change came not from his cultivation, but from the demonic power within his body and the demonic core in his core C. 2 months passed, during which Meng Hao consumed his scant supply of Foundation establishment pills. Finally, he had fully absorbed one. His eyes opened. He could move. A roaring erupted within him, along with severe pain, as if parts of his body were tearing apart. He spat out a mouthful of black blood. His eyes dimmed as consciousness wavered. Instead, he bit his tongue, forcing himself to stay awake. He rotated his cultivation base toward the 9th level of qi condensation. Determination filled his eyes. He gathered the explosive spiritual power within and pushed forward. The spiritual energy surged ahead, filling his head with a roar like thunder. His body felt as if it would explode. Then it felt as if the spiritual energy opened a new realm within him. A wonderful sensation filled him, difficult to describe. A tingling, as if countless feathers caressed him. He immersed himself in the feeling. A long time passed before he opened his eyes. They glowed dazzlingly, as if splitting the cave's darkness with brilliant lightning. Meng Hao took a deep breath, and the cave's spiritual energy seemed to be sucked into him strand by strand. Then it left him, and filth extruded from his pores. His body grew lighter, his eyes brighter. The boundless core sea inside him was twice its previous size. The golden water billowed and roared. Deep within, the demonic core rested, unmoving, sending vast spiritual energy that made the golden light even more dazzling, filling Meng Hao's body. He felt the urge to lift his head and cry out. The 9th level of qi condensation. I, Meng Hao, have reached it at last. My next step will be Foundation establishment. His eyes filled with exuberance, he took several deep breaths. With the sublime spirit scripture, I can establish a flawless foundation, far superior to a cracked or fractured foundation. He stood up, filled with confidence and hope. He looked forward to traveling to the southern domain and reaching Foundation establishment. He wondered what a flawless foundation would bring and what cultivators would think of him then. Not having reached Foundation establishment, he didn't understand its rarity, yet he looked forward with eager anticipation. He flicked his sleeve and a fist-sized water globe appeared. It stretched, forming a sheet of water the size of his body. He walked through it. When he emerged, the filth was gone, and a fragrant aroma drifted from him. The door of the immortal's cave shattered. Outside it was midday, and the season had shifted. Meng Hao stepped out to feel hot, dry wind on his face. He felt relaxed and fresh. When I reach Foundation Establishment, I will achieve true flight. He looked at the blue sky, and his smile widened. He hopped onto his treasured fan and sped along. Flying some distance from Mount Daqing, he suddenly caught sight of someone racing toward him, pursued by a large, vicious-looking man. The person being chased was pale but hard-eyed. He wasn't tall, rather skinny, appearing about 13 or 14 years old. Despite this, his cultivation base was at the 5th level of qi condensation. His pursuer was a 6th-level qi condensation cultivator in a tattered aqua-blue robe who appeared wounded. Murder roiled in his furious eyes. "It doesn't matter where you try to run, Donghu. If you give me the pearl, considering my status in the upright evening sect, I can leave you with your life. Otherwise, you're dead." The big man raised his right hand, and a frigid glow appeared, solidifying into a full moon scimitar. He tossed it toward the youth. The youth was none other than one of Meng Hao's group who elder sister Su had taken to the Reliance sect, Little Tiger. 1. Check back to Chapter 19 for an interested tidbit about Little Tiger. The character Hu in the name Dong Hu means tiger. After the sect dissolved, he had been swept away and vanished. Meng Hao floated above, looking down at Little Tiger. Little Tiger's face was pale, but killing intent flashed in his hard eyes. He waved his sleeves, sending forth cold beams of light, glittering arrows that appeared coated with poison. The arrows shot toward the big man. He laughed, waving his sleeve to summon wind that swept the arrows away. His hand flickered in incantation patterns, causing his scimitar to shoot toward Little Tiger. It was upon him in the blink of an eye. Little Tiger's eyes widened. Suddenly, an aqua-blue pearl appeared in his hand. It was partly transparent, filled with layers of curling clouds. A stream of clouds erupted from the pearl, coalescing into a vague figure that shot toward the scimitar. When they collided, a bang rang out, and both the scimitar and the vague figure collapsed into pieces. The big man coughed blood, and greed intensified in his eyes. He continued his pursuit. The blood drained from Little Tiger's face. The attack had been difficult to perform. He staggered forward, running a few paces before tumbling to the ground. "You can't escape," laughed the big man viciously, approaching Little Tiger, whose eyes filled with desperation. Off in the distance, Meng Hao sighed. Finally, he raised a finger, summoning a furious wind in the forest. The 9th-level qi condensation pressure enveloped the big man. Trembling, he looked up in shock to see Meng Hao floating down toward him. Simultaneously, Little Tiger, still on the ground, pulled a poisoned dagger from his sleeve. He leaped up, and the dagger flashed. As the big man was distracted by Meng Hao, the dagger slashed through his neck. He let out a miserable cry as blood showered everywhere, covering Little Tiger. Though weak and exhausted, Little Tiger's fall had been feigned. When the man lowered his guard, he had planned this strike. The big man collapsed, twitching. He tried to cover the gash in his neck, but blood gushed out profusely. Within moments, he was dead. His eyes stared blankly into the distance. Little Tiger stepped back, looking at Meng Hao, ready to flee at any moment. Then he felt the power of Meng Hao's cultivation base, and his body trembled. Meng Hao said nothing. He walked over and examined the corpse, then looked at the nervous Little Tiger, staring at him silently. Little Tiger said nothing either. He merely looked at Meng Hao, a complicated expression in his eyes. A long moment passed before Meng Hao spoke. "It was because of this pearl that you killed Wang Yaokai," he said calmly. An imperceptible look in his eye revealed that he was bluffing, but Little Tiger didn't see it. Instead, Little Tiger stood silent, lips sealed. He was short, with dark skin and a skinny frame. His clothes were dilapidated, and he had fallen on hard times. He almost looked like a beggar, but the coldness he had shown when killing the man seemed to make everything obvious. Meng Hao studied him a moment, then shook his head. He sighed and turned to leave. A look of hesitation crossed Little Tiger's eyes. He suddenly spoke, his voice hoarse and trembling with nervousness. Elder Brother Meng, are you going to Mount Daqing to save everyone?" Meng Hao halted in his tracks and looked back at Little Tiger. "What are you talking about?" he said, his voice low. This chapter was sponsored by Mort Stakemere, Jack Bullock, Mitchell Kutchuk, and Marius Whitman. Chapter 72, A True Man. Little Tiger looked closely at Meng Hao. Naive as a child, he had become hard as iron after joining the Reliance sect, having experienced many unimaginable misfortunes. No one knew how many cultivators he had secretly slain. He stared at Meng Hao, and gradually realized he truly didn't know what had happened recently. Elder brother Meng, in recent days, the entire cultivation world of the state of Zhao has been searching for you. The three great sects issued a joint order for your arrest. Multitudes of cultivators have spread out in all directions to hunt you down. He hesitated before continuing. Meng Hao's expression didn't change. He floated in the air, looking down wordlessly at Little Tiger. The three great sects ordered that you were not to be killed, he said slowly. You could be injured or crippled but not slain. He continued to look at Meng Hao, unable to tell what he was thinking. If what you're saying is false, said Meng Hao coolly, then don't blame me for forgetting our past ties. Hearing this, Little Tiger took 2 steps backward, his face flickering. Elder brother Meng must remember Master Uncle Shangyuan from the inner sect. 2 months ago, he surrounded the 3 counties near Mount Daqing with an enormous spell. He clenched his fists. He plans to use the mortal's blood to concoct blood pills for Foundation establishment. It's been going on for 2 months. With my cultivation base, I can't match him, but I came to save my father and mother. Meng Hao stared at him in shock, head spinning. Fury erupted within him, and a violent aura of killing intent emanated from him. He knew Shangyuan Ziu's true goal was not blood pills, but to lure him out. His face grew grim. Shangyuan Ziu has involved 3 counties, and the cultivation world of the state of Zhao does nothing. Meng Hao's voice was ice cold. Does anyone believe his goal is Foundation establishment? Everyone says Shangyuan Ziu longs for Foundation establishment, said Little Tiger, and that he intentionally picked the 3 counties around Mount Daqing because of an auspicious sign that appeared here years ago. With blood pills, he can easily break through. In the past, the 3 great sects would never allow this, but right now they seek Patriarch Reliance's meditation zone. That's why they sent everyone looking for you and have ignored what's happening here. They don't want extra trouble. Furthermore, Shangyuan Ziu is no ordinary person. I learned he's from Milky Way City. The 3 great sects apparently attempted to interfere at first, but then backed off for some reason. Meng Hao listened quietly, then smiled, a cold, dark smile. The killing intent in his heart far outmatched what he'd felt toward Wang Tengfei or even Ding Xin. This desire to kill made his core sea churn. It was fiercer than anything he'd felt in his 21 years. Shangyuan Ziu. Meng Hao spun toward Mount Daqing. He flicked his sleeve and Little Tiger flew onto the treasured fan, shocked. Elder brother Meng, what's going on? Blurted Little Tiger, breath quickening. We're going to Mount Daqing. If what you've said is true, very well. But if you've lied, then you will never worry about people chasing you for your treasure. The treasured fan flickered and they shot off. Little Tiger was quiet. He stood on the fan beside Meng Hao, a conflicted look in his eye. Soon determination replaced it. It wasn't long before Mount Daqing loomed before them. Meng Hao didn't charge in directly. The fan flashed and they landed. Up ahead, everything was enveloped by a glowing red aura. Outside the aura, every 500 kilometers, a black-robed cultivator sat cross-legged, meditating. There were a dozen or so, supporting the base of the spell surrounding the 3 counties. Far on the mountain's peak, someone sat cross-legged in meditation. In the counties below, everything was quiet. Wispy strands of blood qi rose from them. Meng Hao's killing intent grew stronger. He took a deep breath and released the bonds he had placed on Little Tiger. When I call your name, you must come, said Meng Hao slowly. Then he walked forward, his body whistling in the wind, emanating ice-cold air. Wang Yaokai isn't dead, blurted Little Tiger. Meng Hao ignored him and raced forward. Little Tiger watched him disappear, then sighed and sat to meditate. He had looked into Meng Hao as well as Shangyuan Ziu. He knew Meng Hao had no immediate family in Yunji County, and that Shangyuan Ziu was using this blood magic to draw him out. Elder brother Meng, I just want to save my father and mother. If you live through this, I will owe you a great debt. Complex emotions flickered in his eyes. Meng Hao shot forward toward the blood-red aura. Little Tiger, though young, was clever and correct. As for Meng Hao, he had always been intelligent. Despite failing as a scholar, he had undergone a baptism in the Reliance sect. After everything he'd experienced, how could he not see his opponent's true purpose? Shangyuan Ziu had set a trap, but how could he not go? Even though he had no immediate family in Yunji County, it was his home. His childhood memories were there, and they were beautiful. Shangyuan Ziu was utterly devoid of conscience. His actions offended Meng Hao to the bone. His desire to kill billowed to untold heights. He was risking death, playing into Shangyuan Ziu's hand, but Meng Hao knew that some things a man must do. Even if dangerous, he would go anyway. Fear and doubt were not for true men. His murderous intent had never been stronger, his desire to kill never so intense. It would not be dispelled by one person's death, but by every person maintaining the blood spell. In my years of cultivation, there are people I haven't killed, not because I couldn't, but because I didn't want to. His speed increased, eyes flashing with death, his heart calm. He reached the blood spells area and shot toward a 6th-level chi condensation cultivator sitting in meditation. The man wore black robes, appearing about 26 or 27. As Meng Hao rushed toward him, his eyes opened. Shocked, he lifted his hand, but in that instant Meng Hao's face, cold and filled with death, shot past him. A sword was in Meng Hao's hand. Behind him a head flew up, its face filled with confusion. The body fell. The reek of blood filled the air. The corpse twitched, then stilled. No shout of pain, no struggle. To Meng Hao it was as simple as slaughtering a chicken. As he had said he couldn't kill, he just didn't like to. When you cut off a chicken's head, Meng Hao said to himself, it usually struggles. People struggle harder, but without a head you don't match even a chicken. Without glancing back, he moved on, eyes filled with killing intent. He moved quickly. Before long, another cross-legged figure appeared. This person had clearly not sensed his compatriot's death. He sat meditating, maintaining the spell. He didn't have a chance to open his eyes before his head flew off. Xianxia, you forced me to kill. Very well, today I will kill everything before me. He flicked the wooden sword, sending blood droplets flying, then vanished. The death of 2 cultivators caused ripples in the red spell. The rest, maintaining it, shocked open their eyes and stood, glancing around cautiously. Atop the mountain, Xianxia's eyes flickered open, glittering as he looked down at what was happening. Blood chi seemed to thicken, but he couldn't see clearly. He frowned and harumphed. He lifted his right hand, and a blood globe appeared about the size of a human head. Blood chi swirled inside. With a flick of his sleeve, he sent the globe shooting down Mount Daqing, slamming through the blood-colored spell with a reverberating boom. The spell weakened. Suddenly a shrill scream echoed from within, filled with pain. Moments later, another scream rang out. This one clearly came from someone else, equally blood-curdling. Xianxia frowned. The blood-colored spell appeared to have shrunk by almost half and was somewhat murky. A third person screamed, then a fourth, almost simultaneously. More screams echoed, over and over, until the blood-colored spell was completely translucent. Xianxia looked down to see a dozen headless corpses. His eyes narrowed and his body spun. There, on a mountain path in a blue scholar's robe, was Meng Hao. He was spattered with blood and gore, and despite looking frail and weak, walked slowly up the mountain, his face expressionless. In his hands he carried a dozen severed heads. Xianxia watched him approach. Meng Hao tossed the heads forward. They plopped to the ground in front of Xianxia, who flicked his sleeve, scattering them. "Your turn," said Meng Hao, his voice hoarse. He usually didn't want to kill, but today he did. Chapter 73, Fierce Fighting. 9th level of Qi Condensation. Xianxia took a deep breath, eyeing Meng Hao. He had maintained the spell here for 2 months. The cultivators from Milky Way City didn't know his true purpose here, and he didn't want their top experts around. He was here for Meng Hao. Based on everything he'd seen and heard recently, he was 60% certain Meng Hao possessed some unholy treasured item that could endlessly duplicate treasures. Otherwise, how could he have so many medicinal pills and flying swords? Also, how could Meng Hao not have noticed that 10 of his flying swords went missing the day of his battle with Wang Tengfei? They appeared broken, but Xianxia had secretly taken and carefully studied them. He discovered all 10 swords were composed of exactly the same materials. Though all flying swords look generally the same, tiny manufacturing differences can be spotted later. Yet Meng Hao's swords had identical details. This aroused Xianxia's suspicions. He wasn't completely convinced by this evidence, but now, seeing Meng Hao had reached the 9th level of Qi Condensation, he was even more certain. 80% or more. "You may have reached the 9th level of Qi Condensation, but clearly you just broke through," said Xianxia, eyes shining coldly. "Should you try to run away today, I will detonate the blood globe I sent down the mountain. The people of the 3 counties will be reduced to ash in the blink of an eye." Worried Meng Hao would flee, he had taken preparations to prevent it. "I won't be running away today." As Meng Hao looked at Xianxia, nearly 5 years of memories flooded him. Their conflicts before the sect dissolved, the chase after it disbanded, all flashed before his eyes. His killing intent flashed. He lifted his hand, and a massive flame python appeared over 30 meters long. A large horn protruded from its head. Flames flickered off its body as it shot toward Xianxia, radiating intense heat. The severed heads surrounding Shang Yuanzu crackled and burned from heat, rolling in his direction. He laughed, slapping his bag of holding to produce a five-colored banner. It unfurled and five-colored mist roiled out. The mist transformed into 5 mist spirits, each dozens of meters tall. With hideous grins, they charged toward the flame python. A massive explosion occurred, smashing nearby boulders to dust and reducing surrounding trees and rattan vines of Mount Daqing to powder. Dust and ash swirled, making the scene blurry. Amidst the haze, Meng Hao dashed forward at incredible speed. Remaining severed heads continued to tumble toward Shang Yuanzu. His eyes flashed, fingers flickering in incantation. He shoved his hands out in front. "Five-colored death," he shouted, and shrill shrieking rose around him. Meng Hao slapped his bag of holding. The scroll painting appeared in his hand. He unrolled it and 6 beasts leaped out howling. A massive thunderous rumble surrounded them. Meng Hao charged toward Shang Yuanzu, whose cold eyes flickered radiantly. Shang Yuanzu moved forward as well. More severed heads were crushed to pulp. "You know what the Reliance sect was called before Patriarch Reliance," said Shang Yuanzu coolly. "It was called the Demon Sealing sect." He suddenly looked toward Mount Daqing's peak and stamped his foot. The mountain began to rumble, and suddenly an impossible-to-describe aura erupted from within. It was only a strand, yet that strand seemed to quiver with the very power of heaven and earth. Not sentient, it was under Shang Yuanzu's control. It rolled up from beneath Meng Hao's feet. Shang Yuanzu suddenly seemed older, as if he had aged 10 years. He looked almost like a corpse crawled from the grave. This magical technique was extremely difficult to employ and required a sacrifice of longevity. Originally, he would never have used it, but seeing Meng Hao's cultivation base, he had no choice. He wanted to end the battle swiftly. After all cultivators in the state of Zhao were hunting Meng Hao right now. This battle would surely attract their attention. If he could end it quickly, he would have time to acquire the treasure he sought. The Demon Sealing sect sought out the great demons of the world, sealed them, released their spirit, and took their power to trample the heavens. "You just entered the 9th level. What could you possibly use to fight me? If I wanted, I could have reached Foundation establishment 50 years ago." As Shang Yuanzu spoke, Meng Hao waved the scroll painting to resist the aura strand bursting around his feet. But as soon as the scroll touched the aura, an explosion rang out. Cracks appeared on its surface as it was thrown violently away. The aura strand shot toward Meng Hao. A bang sounded, and Meng Hao coughed blood. The feathered fan appeared before him in the blink of an eye to shield him. Cracks split the feathers as Meng Hao took the moment to evade. He evaded but was still sent tumbling backward, coughing blood 3 times. One move and Meng Hao was already injured. Shang Yuanzu possessed unfathomable secrets. He laughed coldly. He had expended longevity to make this attack. Though it hadn't killed Meng Hao outright, Shang Yuanzu was determined to win. He walked forward, stepping over smashed, bloody remains of severed heads. Meng Hao's mouth was filled with blood, but his eyes shone with viciousness. As Shang Yuanzu walked forward, Meng Hao lifted his hand, and within the severed head's pulp, a black aura arose. In an instant, it coalesced into a black scorpion. It moved like lightning, so quickly Shang Yuanzu had no time to pull back his foot or leap away. The scorpion's stinger sank into his foot's flesh. The scorpion turned into strands of blackness pouring into Shang Yuanzu. His face twisted. This turn of events was too sudden and unpredictable. The scorpion came from a rare magical pill he'd acquired from Cayenne and Lu of the Violet Fate sect. This magical scorpion was hyper-toxic. The black aura entered his foot and merged into his chi passageways, filling his entire body in an instant. His face turned black and he spit up a mouthful of black blood, stinking like rotten fish. "What poison is this?" said Shang Yuanzu, expression shocked as he retreated. Weakness spread through him like floodwaters. Knowing he had little time to think, he slapped his bag of holding and produced a medicinal pill, swallowing it. Meng Hao had planned things well for this moment. Even his 3 mouthfuls of blood had been coughed up intentionally to make Shang Yuanzu think he held the upper hand. As soon as his opponent retreated and pulled out a pill, Meng Hao charged forward. He slapped his bag of holding and the black net shot forth, threatening to envelop Shang Yuanzu. What happened next occurred faster than it takes to describe. Shang Yuanzu's expression flickered as he downed the pill. His fingers flickered in incantation even as the net began to cover him. Meng Hao moved forward without pause. The black wooden bow appeared in his hand, and he pulled the bowstring, sending an arrow screaming toward Shang Yuanzu. Shang Yuanzu moved backward at high speed. A medicinal pill, a black net, an arrow, and an incantation. He couldn't manage all of them. He had to choose 2. A booming sound rang out. Shang Yuan ziu down the pill but abandoned his incantation. He evaded the black net but couldn't avoid the arrow. It shot into his right shoulder, emerging in a shower of blackened blood. Intense pain flashed through him, but Shang Yuanziu let out a low snort. Meng Hao didn't pause. A second arrow whistled forth, followed by a third and fourth. Meng Hao moved forward relentlessly. Every step he shot an arrow, 7 steps, 7 arrows. The 7 arrows shot forward, screaming through the air with shocking killing intent. Shang Yuanziu continued to retreat, struggling to control the black strands spreading through his body. Yet he also had to dodge the incoming arrows. Being at the 9th level of qi condensation, he could only do so much. He might be at the absolute peak, a hair away from foundation establishment, but he was still in the qi condensation stage. Like Meng Hao, he remained in the qi condensation stage. The difference in power between them was like sky and ground. He couldn't do everything perfectly at once. A booming sound reverberated as the 7 arrows pierced his right arm, completely destroying it. He sacrificed his right arm to focus on controlling the poison in his body. An 8th arrow shot toward him, then a 9th. He raised his head and howled. From the day he began cultivation until today, he had never been in such a dangerous, tight situation. He had lost an arm. The price, the pain, it drove his desire to kill Meng Hao to a new, intense height. His eyes were bloodshot. The poison was under control but couldn't easily be expelled. In fact, he could tell it was impossible to expel while in the qi condensation stage. Only at foundation establishment could he do so. "Milky Way Sea," he shouted, hair flying about him crazily. He bit the tip of his tongue and spat out blood. A violet pearl flew from within the blood, a seething mass of wind. As soon as it appeared, a fierce gale arose, sending Meng Hao's latest 3 arrows into a spin. They collapsed into pieces. Chapter 74, Not Past 100 Years. The pearl spun back into Shang Yuanziu's mouth, and he used his remaining arm to slap his bag of holding. Multiple flying swords, banners, and other magical items appeared, flying forward at once. Then, one by one, they exploded. Shang Yuanziu lifted his hands, and the fragments rose to create something like a sea. From a distance, the fragments glinted blindingly, as if a sea floated in the sky. The sea began to spin, then shot directly toward Meng Hao, whistling through the air. This was the Milky Way Sea, a magical technique that earned Patriarch Milky Way his name many years ago. He eventually divided it into multiple levels. The lowest level could be used only by 9th level qi condensation cultivators. Of course, foundation establishment cultivators could flick a sleeve and create a Milky Way Sea from fragmented items. During the qi condensation stage, this was truly powerful. This technique was not easy to pull off. Only someone at the 9th level's peak could do it, and they needed a vast amount of spiritual power. In all of Milky Way City, Shang Yuanziu was the only qi condensation cultivator who could do it. He wanted to end the fight as quickly as possible, not only to acquire Meng Hao's treasures, but also to get back to Milky Way City to dispel the poison. So he attacked with his most powerful technique, sending the cloud of fragmented treasures toward Meng Hao. As it approached, Meng Hao took a deep breath and slapped his bag of holding. Flying sword after flying sword emerged. 10, 50, 100, until 300 flying swords spun around him. Meng Hao lifted his hands and pushed them forward. The 300 swords formed a massive sword rain, congealing into the shape of a flying rain dragon. 2 golden strands of light appeared in his hands, the 2 wooden swords. His body turned into a beam of light as he flew up into the flying rain dragon. It was as if he had become the spirit of the flying sword rain dragon. It raised its head to the heavens and roared, then shot toward the Milky Way Sea. An explosion reverberated, shaking heaven and earth. The Milky Way Sea's fragmented treasures lashed against Meng Hao's flying swords. Popping sounds echoed as swords collapsed into pieces. But if the sea destroyed 10 swords, Meng Hao produced 10 more to replace them. He could currently control 300 flying swords simultaneously. Within his bag of holding, he had about 700, slowly duplicated over the last year. After his fierce battle with Ding Xin and breaking through to the 9th level of qi condensation, he had prepared completely. Seeing this, Shang Yuanziu's face changed. His left hand flickered in incantation, then produced more magical items he added to the conglomeration. Meng Hao's flying sword screamed as they continuously battered the Milky Way Sea. The sound reverberated in all directions, yet the sea's power was formidable. He wasn't able to move forward easily. Suddenly, he spun, causing the flying swords around him to rotate. They rotated faster and faster, becoming a whirlwind with Meng Hao at the center. He stopped moving, but the whirlwind continued spinning faster. From a distance, it looked like a rapidly spinning tornado slicing through the Milky Way Sea. The fragmented treasures continued to smash against the flying swords, but after a few breaths, the swords pushed forward, slicing clean through. Shang Yuanziu's face twisted. Meng Hao's cultivation base was shocking, as was his arsenal of magical items. Most shocking was his battle experience. His ability to quickly change magical battle techniques left Shang Yuanziu in utter disbelief. Amidst the reverberating roar, Meng Hao and his sword rain plowed through the Milky Way Sea, scattering pieces about. Meng Hao suddenly leaped forward, the two golden strands of wooden swords emitting shrill whistles as they shot through the air with him. Shock covered Shang Yuanziu's face. "Meng Hao," he cried, shooting backward as fast as possible, his face panic-stricken. In complete contrast, Meng Hao attacked without a word, his expression unchanged. He increased his speed, aiming the two swords, one toward his heart, the other toward his forehead. Shang Yuanziu was vexed to the extreme. He had held the upper hand at first, but then was poisoned. Things had only worsened. He couldn't dispel the poison, so he couldn't use his full cultivation base. He constantly needed to suppress its effects. Now he was forced to retreat, one step at a time. His hand flashing, Shang Yuanziu smacked his chest and coughed up blood. From within it came the pearl that had appeared moments ago. A curving arc of light shot forward to block the two wooden swords. The shield tremored, then shattered, shoving Shang Yuanziu backward even faster. Seeing the shield shatter, Shang Yuanziu quickly said, "Meng Hao, let's stop here. The three great sects are looking for you, and our fight will surely attract their attention. They could arrive at any moment. I won't harm the inhabitants of the three counties. Let's abandon our enmity. What do you say?" Meng Hao didn't respond. His spiritual energy soared and the wooden swords glowed, pushing through the shield. Shang Yuanziu was now extremely alarmed. With a howl, he waved his arm, pointing toward the mountain's bottom. "If you keep going, I will exterminate the people of the three counties." "Little tiger," shouted Meng Hao. This was the second time he had spoken during the battle. As his shout echoed, a twinkling blood-red color appeared at the mountain's bottom. A head-sized blood globe appeared and began to expand, as if about to explode. An emaciated figure appeared, none other than Little Tiger. His jaw was clenched, and he held a pearl outstretched in his hands. The pearl shot toward the blood globe, spinning around it rapidly to form a restrictive barrier that stopped the blood's expansion. "Meng Hao, I can only hold on for the time it takes an incense stick to burn." Having said this, Little Tiger coughed blood and sat down cross-legged to meditate. Shang Yuanziu's face flickered with more emotions, but he had no time to do anything. With a boom, the shield collapsed and Shang Yuanziu's pearl shattered. The wooden swords advanced, Meng Hao behind them, his killing intent rising to the heavens. Blood sprayed from Shang Yuanziu's mouth and he lost control of the poison. It exploded, threatening to send him into unconsciousness. He continued to retreat, a sad smile on his face. "The heavens will give me no aid," he said with a bitter laugh. "Meng Hao, I will not lose this battle, and you, I vow I will smash your chi passageways." His smile contained intense discontent and helplessness, but not despair. The discontent and helplessness created an air darker than any despair. His left hand smacked his bag of holding. Ignoring the incoming wooden swords, he held up a medicinal pill. As it appeared, nearby spiritual energy surged, and strong medicinal aroma filled the air. With a bitter laugh, he swallowed it. When he saw the pill, Meng Hao's eyes narrowed. It was amber-colored, a Foundation Establishment pill. Inscribed on its surface was a seal. It was the exact Foundation Establishment pill he had sold at Milky Way City. "I, Shang Yuanziu, reached the first level of qi condensation at 7 years old," he muttered. "At 30 I was at the 6th level, by 39 the 9th level. Today I'm 99 years old." He didn't look at Meng Hao but stared into the sky. In an instant the power within his body surged. He didn't move, he couldn't until the pill was fully absorbed. Yet despite this weakness, his power was immense, already much more than the 9th level of qi condensation. As he soared toward Foundation Establishment, the two wooden swords slowly stopped about 7 inches from his body. Meng Hao's expression changed. He could sense his opponent's aura growing stronger. He was establishing his foundation right here on Mount Daqing. Little Tiger's expression changed even more. "I could have established my foundation 50 years ago," said Shang Yuanziu, a dark expression on his face, his appearance wild. "But I didn't want to. I didn't want a flawless foundation. I've been planning 50 years to establish a world-shaking foundation that would surpass flawlessness. I wanted perfect foundation. But today I've been wounded and poisoned. If I don't reach foundation establishment, I will surely die. 50 years of preparations, the last step ruined by you. Meng Hao, do you know how much I hate you? He lowered his head and stared at Meng Hao. He didn't grind his teeth or howl. His face was calm, yet his eyes blazed with an intense hatred carved into his bones and heart. Meng Hao's heart raced and he felt death's shadow upon him. But he didn't retreat. His eyes flashing, he recalled his own foundation establishment experience. He hadn't been able to move for 2 months. I was at the 8th level, so it took 2 months, he thought. Shang Yuanziu has been at the 9th level's peak for 50 years. He'll absorb the energy much faster. But there has to be a way. His eyes glittering, he produced a plateau charging pill and swallowed it. As spiritual energy billowed through his body, he waved his hands toward the 2 wooden swords. With a rumbling sound, the swords trembled and began to emit a powerful air. Slowly but surely, they moved closer to Shang Yuanziu. They were about 3 inches away when they slowly ground to a halt. This was Meng Hao's limit. He didn't have enough spiritual power to move them further. You don't know your own limitations, said Shang Yuanziu with a cold laugh. I could have established my foundation 50 years ago. With the profundity of my cultivation base, I will absorb the pill in less than an hour. You'd best do whatever you can to flee, but even if you run to the earth's edges, you're dead. He stared at Meng Hao, his hatred conjuring hundreds of ways to kill him. Chapter 75. An ancient path appears again. Meng Hao's face was grim. He looked at the 2 wooden swords hovering 3 inches from Shang Yuanziu. Those 3 inches were like a massive ravine he couldn't cross with his current cultivation base. As for Shang Yuanziu, he couldn't really be considered a qi condensation cultivator now. Though still some distance from foundation establishment, a Dao pillar was forming within his core lake. At this moment, despite being at the 9th level of qi condensation, Meng Hao was so weak compared to Shang Yuanziu that he couldn't withstand a single blow. The gap between foundation establishment and qi condensation is like that between sky and ground, something that will never change. With the exception of some event that defies the heavens' will, it would be impossible for a qi condensation cultivator to kill one at foundation establishment. A contest between them would be like a fight between an infant and a strong man. Even if the strong man were weakened, he could still slay the infant with a hand's movement. Today, Meng Hao had little more than an hour before a foundation establishment cultivator appeared. His chances were already small, but at that time, he would have none. Time slipped by and death's shadow grew closer. Even if he fled in a very short time, it wouldn't matter where he went. Even to the remotest corner of the Milky Way Sea, he would still be unable to evade death. What should I do? Meng Hao's eyes were bloodshot. He wasn't the only nervous one. At the mountain's bottom, Little Tiger's face was growing pale. Seeing the developments, he gritted his teeth. Meng Hao, he shouted. His fingers flickered in incantation, and then he pushed down on his chest. He spat up a massive amount of blood which flew in front of him and formed into a handful of red clouds. This pearl is my life. Allow me to offer assistance. As soon as the words left his mouth, he collapsed into unconsciousness. The pearl sucked Little Tiger's blood cloud into it and began to shine with red glow. It circulated a few more times around the blood globe, then suddenly shot toward Meng Hao. When it reached him, the glow intensified, enveloping him. At that moment, a strange sensation filled Meng Hao's heart. It felt as if his cultivation base were suddenly climbing higher. His golden core sea began to roar as it expanded. Within an instant, it had doubled in size. Its boundlessness increased so much it felt as if it would explode from his body. Meng Hao's body suddenly shined with golden light, making him look completely extraordinary. The demonic core within him didn't undulate but instead spun rapidly. As it did, intense spiritual power flooded through his body, filling his mind with a thunderous roar and a thread of qi. The qi was weak, like the thread he'd felt at the first level of qi condensation. This strand of qi in his mind was something only foundation establishment cultivators should possess: spiritual sense. Even Shang Yuanziu couldn't develop it, because he hadn't completely reached foundation establishment. And yet, Meng Hao hadn't reached foundation establishment either. Instead, he had reached the 10th level of qi condensation. Popping sounds rang out through his body. Filth was pushed out through his pores as he experienced a baptism into a higher level than anyone else in the world. The 10th level of qi condensation. Meng Hao's head spun. His body was suddenly much tougher and stronger. He not only developed spiritual sense but had grown miraculously more powerful. In the cultivation world, the 10th level of qi condensation was rarely seen. Throughout the years, many of the most powerful members of each generation had researched the qi condensation stage to determine whether a 10th level, 11th, or 12th level even existed. Theoretically, it was possible. In some ancient text fragments, these levels were mentioned. Supposedly, in ancient times, there were a total of 13 qi condensation levels. According to legend, even then, reaching the 10th level was rare, the 11th even rarer. Any who reached that level inevitably rocked the world. In the modern cultivation world, the 10th level was nothing more than legend. Over the years, generation after generation researched it, eventually reaching a consensus. In ancient times, there had been 13 qi condensation levels, but the 9th level was set as the limit. The 10th level and beyond were crippled by the heavens' will. From then on, there were only 9 levels. Another opinion, rejected by most as absurd, held that the ancient will of the heavens was dead, and a new will had arisen. This new will approved only 9 qi condensation levels, breaking the path of the 10th. Following that path allowed one to fight against the heavens, which was prohibited. If a cultivator accumulated enough spiritual energy of heaven and earth, they could forge the path to reach the fabled ancient 10th level of qi condensation. The path was the focal point. Unfortunately, it had been broken since ancient times. Though it still existed, it was essentially broken beyond repair. But today it appeared in Meng Hao's body, visible not only to him, but also to a dumbfounded Xianxia. How could he believe that Meng Hao had actually entered the legendary 10th level of qi condensation? Impossible. The 10th level of qi condensation is just a legend. Xianxu's face was filled with disbelief. According to the stories, the 10th level is a body-strengthening stage. It exists in theory, and even in ancient times it was rare to achieve. Impossible. Were little Tiger not unconscious, he would also be shocked. Though the pearl was his, composed of his life force, it had never had such an effect. Whatever level he was at, it allowed him to wield power equal to half the following level. For example, at the 5th level of qi condensation, in terms of power, he was already halfway through the 6th level. Meng Hao's hair flew about wildly and his eyes glowed brightly. He took a deep breath, feeling the immense power surging through him. He felt the thread of qi in his mind, as well as strength rippling through his muscles and blood. He knew he wasn't in the least bit weak. Yet there was a side effect. As soon as he reached the 10th level of qi condensation, the heavens seemed to sever his connection to them. He couldn't sense any power of heaven and earth, as if completely cut off. He felt a wild sucking feeling within him, as if he were a newborn child needing nutrients but denied them. At the moment, his body still appeared that of a weak scholar, but in reality, his flesh was filled with enough strength that he felt he could rip a city wall in half. There wasn't time to consider this, though. His eyes flashed as he looked at Xianxia and the disbelief on his face. Meng Hao took a deep breath and lifted his right hand, pointing his finger at the wooden swords. This finger strike contained all the power of Meng Hao's 10th level of qi condensation, all of his spiritual sense, all of his physical strength. This was Meng Hao's most powerful attack, probably the most powerful attack any qi condensation cultivator in the state of Zhao could muster. A boom rang out as he tapped the wooden sword. It erupted with sword might, piercing the 3-inch gap and stabbing deeply into Xianxu's chest. A bang sounded as it stabbed completely through, emerging in a shower of blood. Xianxu's body shook, yet he couldn't move. His eyes filled with dread as massive spiritual energy flooded from the wound. In the blink of an eye, the energy seepage had caught up with his foundation establishment. The time to reach foundation establishment would take much, much longer. Meng Hao's hand lifted and tapped the other wooden sword. It hummed as it proceeded toward Xianxu's neck. Meng Hao, you don't dare kill me. Xianxia was completely in panic now. His previous cold arrogance and killing intent had vanished, replaced with a desperate struggle to evade death. Meng Hao said nothing. His eyes glowed darkly as the sword he had tapped passed through the 3-inch gap and stabbed into Xianxu's neck. In the instant it pierced his neck, Xianxia suddenly twisted his head to the side in an impossible fashion. The wooden sword sliced open a massive wound that erupted with blood, but didn't kill him. Dread permeated Xianxia. His life force was beginning to fade, and his spiritual power dissipated. As spiritual energy poured out of him, his body began to grow more responsive. Meng Hao, there's no hatred between us that can't be resolved. If you let me go, I will give you the sublime spirit scripture. Xianxia couldn't be more terrified. Before he finished speaking, the 2 wooden swords circled back, stabbing through his chest again, showering blood everywhere. Shang Yunziu let out a blood-curdling scream filled with weakness and despair. Meng Hao didn't care in the least when he mentioned the sublime spirit scripture. His eyes were as hard as ever. It didn't matter what Shang Yunziu said. He wouldn't stop until Shang Yunziu was utterly and completely dead. This was Meng Hao. Once he made a decision, he wouldn't change his mind easily. This chapter is sponsored by Sai Pakalapati, Tijandra Johans and Anand Manthrapragata. Chapter 76, Beyond Flawlessness. The two wooden swords circled, emitting a shocking sword aura as they sped toward Shang Yunziu's head from left and right, carrying Meng Hao's killing intent. This time, there was no escape. "There is something more precious than a flawless foundation," shrieked Shang Yunziu. "It's something that in the southern domain, in fact in all the 4 continents, is 100,000 times more rare than your 10th level of qi condensation. I'm talking about a perfect foundation. Meng Hao, you." Then Meng Hao's 2 swords stabbed into his head, sending fountains of blood in all directions. Shang Yunziu died instantly. He had not lived past 100 years, but rather had died feeling infinite grievance. His non-reconciliation to death stemmed from his great plans and his incomplete foundation establishment. But then his head exploded, and his body dropped down off of Mount Daqing and splashed into the river below. His aspirations and his body floated away into the distance. Meng Hao snatched his dark green bag of holding as he fell. He didn't look at it, but instead tucked it into his robe. He panted. Despite reaching the 10th level of qi condensation, he had wielded the 2 wooden swords to slay someone on the verge of foundation establishment. He felt drained. He watched Shang Yunziu's body disappear in the distance, and then turned and hopped onto a wooden sword. His body transformed into a beam of light, and he shot down the mountain to where little Tiger lay unconscious. The boy's face was as pale as death, and his eyes were tightly shut. His aura was like gossamer threads, and his life force flickered like a tiny flame that could be extinguished at any moment. Meng Hao looked at little Tiger thoughtfully, then glanced at the pearl floating beside him. Its power was shocking to the extreme, a true treasure, comparable even to the copper mirror. To duplicate it would cost an astronomical amount of spirit stones. What a pity! Meng Hao sighed and looked up into the sky. He'd known from the beginning that the pearl was linked to little Tiger's life force. If he stole it, then little Tiger would die. "You entrusted me with your life. How could I, Meng Hao, act the villain? It would plague my conscience forever and end my path of cultivation." His eyes glittering, he flicked his sleeve and tapped little Tiger's forehead. Little Tiger's body spasmed, then his eyes snapped open. He was instantly on guard, rising and retreating several paces. He glanced at the pearl in Meng Hao's hands, and his body began to shiver slightly. A look of despair crept into his eyes. Meng Hao lifted the pearl with a finger, causing it to shoot straight toward little Tiger, who snatched it out of the air. A complex expression filled his face, and he stared at Meng Hao blankly. "Many thanks for your assistance. This treasure is astonishing. You need to be cautious and take care of yourself." As the pearl left his hand, Meng Hao's body weakened. The telltale signs of the 10th level of qi condensation disappeared. As his cultivation base dropped, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth which had just been cut off from him slowly began to return. The unbridled gravitational force within his body slowly vanished. Meng Hao didn't regret his decision. There were some things that he just couldn't do. He refused to defy his own conscience in such a way. The blood globe that Shang Yunziu used to threaten the 3 counties shattered between Meng Hao's fingers, transforming into vast amounts of blood qi that floated back toward them. The common people only knew that for 2 months they had felt dizzy, and now felt clear-headed once more, though slightly weak. Unbeknownst to them, 5 years had been stripped from their lifespans. Meng Hao could see this, but there was nothing he could do except sigh to himself. He flicked his sleeve and left. "Elder brother Meng," said little Tiger, Shang Yunziu. "There is no such person in the world anymore." He didn't look back, just continued into the distance. The battle would attract the 3 great sects' attention. Meng Hao could guess their reason. Shang Yunziu wanted his bag of holding and the 3 sects wanted him. For now, he had no way to deal with this. He could only hide somewhere remote to think. Little Tiger didn't say anything more. He watched Meng Hao leaving, and then a look of determination filled his eyes. "Meng Hao, you didn't covet my most valuable treasure. I Donghu am not a good person, but you can rest easy. In this life I will never do anything to let you down." He turned, casting his vision into the town far off in the distance. He caught sight of his father and mother, and a gentle look filled his eyes. Then the warmth vanished. Lowering his head, he quickly made his way off into the distance. At that exact moment, the sky filled with countless beams of prismatic light. In the lead was none other than Liu Daiyun from the Cold Wind sect. "Meng Hao, you won't escape this time." Meng Hao frowned, turning into a flash of light as he fled. He used the last of his 10th-level power to distance himself from his pursuers. Far off in the distance, he had caught sight of more disciples of the three great sects, and among them had been Foundation establishment cultivators and core formation eccentrics. They had obviously been unwilling to show up themselves, and had instead sent some lower-level disciples over to check things out. But now that Meng Hao's presence had been confirmed, they would surely make appearances. Xianxia was backed by Milky Way City. It seems that power was considerable. The three great sects must have stayed away by agreement. Once the battle magic faded, they could approach. Xianxia had his secrets and didn't want people to see what was happening. He was even careful about the people from Milky Way City. He didn't let them know his true purposes either. He left Mount Duqing, passed the North Sea, and crossed the wide wilderness toward the Reliance sect. Halfway through, in a random mountain range, Meng Hao raced forward, expression distant. As he raced along, he would occasionally look down at a piece of turtle shell which he held in his hand. This was an item he had taken out of Xianxua's bag of holding. It was about the size of his palm, and its edges were rough. Obviously, it had been broken off from a larger turtle shell. Its surface bore rows of small characters, difficult to make out. Only by infusing his eyes with spiritual energy could he read them clearly. In the cultivation world, it is possible to achieve the so-called perfect foundation, Meng Hao gasped. On the surface of the turtle shell were two medicinal pill recipes. One was for a perfect foundation pill, the other was for a perfect gold core pill. The turtle shell spells it out clearly. The foundation establishment stage doesn't just have three types, the flawless, cracked, and fractured. There's a fourth type, the perfect foundation. It's extremely rare, being seen only 1/10,000 cases. Meng Hao breathed rapidly, staring down at the turtle shell and thinking back to what Xianxia had said before he died. Now he understood his opponent's regret at being forced to ascend to Foundation establishment after being poisoned. And now he understood the raging hatred in Xianxua's eyes. Meng Hao contemplated silently. He had read much about Foundation establishment in the magic pavilion of the Reliance sect. In Foundation establishment, Tao pillars would come to being within the core lake. Because Foundation establishment increased one's longevity, it was categorized as stealing good fortune and defying the heavens. As a result, the Tao pillars could never be perfect but would always contain cracks. This was in accordance with the Tao of the heavens. It could be summed up in the expression, you get some, you lose some, or perhaps, when something comes in, something goes out. It was part of the cycle of heaven and earth, and was permitted to exist. Foundation establishment consisted of early, mid, and late substages. In total, 9 Tao pillars would appear. If each pillar had one crack, it meant a total of 9 cracks would appear. This is what is referred to as a flawless foundation. A flawless foundation contained the least amount of cracks and leaked the least amount of spiritual energy. After long periods of breathing exercises, the body would become incredibly powerful, much more so than other foundations. In the modern cultivation world, this was the most powerful foundation type. The special methods to achieve it could only be found amidst the clues in the great classic scriptures, for example the Qi condensation manual of the Sublime Spirit scripture. Such secrets could lead to horrific bloodbaths. In fact, that was why the Reliance sect had been disbanded. Without such a scripture, the only way to have a chance at establishing a flawless foundation was to have incredible latent talent or outstanding good fortune. Most often, it was a chosen who could piece together the clues to do so. If an additional crack appeared on each of the Tao pillars, this was called a cracked foundation. Although this type of foundation was weaker than a flawless foundation, it could not be looked down upon. Usually, only disciples of the great sects were able to achieve it. Last, of course, was the fractured foundation. This was when, after reaching late foundation establishment, more than 18 cracks existed on the Tao pillars, which is too much. This foundation could be considered nearly shattered. In terms of both cultivation speed as well as battle prowess, both were much weaker. With this type of foundation, the chances of forming a core were much lower. Meng Hao thought about all of this and then looked down at the turtle shell. According to the description here, by concocting and consuming a perfect foundation pill, there was a high probability of establishing a perfect foundation. In this case, no cracks whatsoever would appear. This was a type of cultivation that defied the heavens and was a path that could not be returned from. Because this foundation was not permitted by the heavens, it would provoke tribulation lightning. True success required defiance of the heavens. In this respect, it was similar to the 10th level of qi condensation. From Shang Yuanziu's words, the 10th level of qi condensation is not tolerated by the heavens. Establishing a perfect foundation is the same. With a fractured foundation, you have a 10% chance. With a cracked foundation, 30%, and with a flawless foundation, 60%. The pill repairs cracks to establish a perfect foundation. But timing matters. Take it soon after foundation establishment. Delay reduces its effectiveness. Concocting it takes 2 months. Meng Hao's heart raced as he sped along. No wonder Shang Yuanziu wanted to join the Reliance sect. Just like Wang Tengfei, he wanted a chance to get the qi condensation manual of the Sublime Spirit scripture. After establishing a flawless foundation, his chances would be much higher. It's also no wonder he disappeared on the day the sect was disbanded. With secrets like this on his person, he didn't dare to show his face. Meng Hao clutched the turtle shell tightly in hand, continuing to race forward. Besides the turtle shell, Shang Yuanziu's bag contained a small pill furnace of translucent green crystal, about the size of a hand. He also had large quantities of medicinal plants, all of them placed in jade boxes. There were hundreds of different types. Many were unfamiliar, but the bag also contained a jade slip with complete identification records for all the plants. As Meng Hao studied it, his excitement grew. Chapter 77, Lord Revelation. Though not precious materials, these medicinal plants were rare. Many cultivators would spend decades collecting them. Yet Shang Yuanziu's bag held hundreds. There were also 2 medicinal pills placed inside of jade boxes, one orange and one blue. Obviously, they were extremely valuable. These are materials for a perfect foundation pill. As for these medicinal pills, after examining them, he studied the turtle shell again, eyes gleaming. Concocting it requires 7 minor pills. These are 2 of those 7 Shang Yuanziu already made. Meng Hao understood now, though somewhat shocked. Shang Yuanziu had spent 50 years collecting all this, yet it was still insufficient for a qi condensation cultivator. And he was even backed by Milky Way City. Meng Hao still felt confused, though. To concoct the pill, Shang Yuanziu had secretly taken items from Patriarch Milky Way's treasure storehouse and items his clan had accumulated over centuries. He had scoured the lands to gather them. Yet he still lacked necessary medicinal materials. He had 1 stem of a rare plant but required 3. At long last, Meng Hao understood the insanity with which Shang Yuanziu had pursued him in his attempt to acquire the copper mirror. In the end, he had delivered all his fortunes directly into Meng Hao's hands. If Shang Yuanziu had known this would happen, he never would have caused problems for Meng Hao. But he had, and his 50 years of preparations were irrevocably lost. Meng Hao took a deep breath and placed the turtle shell and medicinal materials into the bag of holding, then into the bag of the cosmos, along with his other bags. He stood in the forest and looked up at the sky, eyes slowly gleaming as he thought of the perfect foundation. His heart pounded. Tribulation lightning will fall after consuming the pill. I shouldn't consider it now. I'll decide after reaching foundation establishment. For now, I must think of the 3 great sects and Patriarch Reliance. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply, pushing down anxious thoughts. When he opened them again, they were calm. A year has passed, and the time Patriarch Reliance set has arrived. He promised a handsome reward if I gather the experts of the state of Zhao. Meng Hao's eyes glittered. But it would be dangerous. He frowned, hesitating. My cultivation base is qi condensation. I'd be an egg thrown against rocks. I shouldn't involve myself. Patriarch Reliance said a year later but gave no specific date. Once my cultivation base is higher, after foundation establishment I can reconsider. I'll be safer then. He lifted his head. Since Patriarch Reliance made the 3-colored spear vanish, he'd lost some faith in the Patriarch's trustworthiness. However, the 3 great sects' arrest warrant means their disciples search everywhere. If cornered, I'll have to lead them into the Patriarch's meditation zone. Meng Hao raced silently through the wild mountains, his decision made. But as he raced forward, he suddenly felt a strange, jittery sensation. His heart lurched as if an invisible hand had passed through his chest and squeezed his heart. He suddenly felt as if all the vegetation around him had eyes staring coldly at him. The feeling passed almost immediately. Though it faded, Meng Hao's face was pale. He looked around. Everything was silent, nothing giving any clue to what had happened. Had it been his imagination? What was that? He thought, hesitating. After a moment, though, his eyes glittered and he shot forward at top speed. Somewhere far away, still in the state of Zhao, An old man in a purplish-blue robe sat cross-legged on a mountain. His eyes were closed, but his right hand flickered as if performing an incantation. He opened his eyes slowly and looked into the distance. "There you are," he said coolly. "The three sects wanted to hide you from me. How laughable." He took a step forward and then disappeared. At the same moment, Liu Dayan sped along. Meng Hao had lost him, but he'd seen where Meng Hao entered the mountains. He pursued, his face filled with incredible hatred and murderous intent. His hatred for Meng Hao reached to his bones. The bloody silver spear incident had made him the butt of jokes throughout the state of Zhao and nearly sparked war between two sects. Though war was averted, he had paid dearly for his actions. It nearly drove him insane to recall standing before the elders. He had been bound on the ceiling pole and lashed with a fire whip over 100 times. The misery, the pain. The lashes tore his skin and left flesh gaping. The pain stabbed into his bones. Even now, waking in the middle of the night, his desire to kill Meng Hao grew stronger. Unlike the others chasing Meng Hao, he would not capture him, only kill him. It might arouse his sect's displeasure, but he'd already decided to forsake them. At worst, he'd flee the state of Zhao after killing Meng Hao. The southern domain was large, filled with cultivator countries, especially toward the center. As a 9th-level Qi condensation cultivator, he'd surely find refuge. Then one day he would return to wipe out the Cold Wind sect and cleanse the pain of his lashing with blood. Now he moved at top speed, using all his power. He was determined to find and kill Meng Hao before the sect's foundation establishment experts and core formation patriarchs arrived. "Meng Hao, run all you like, but there's nowhere to escape." Liu Dayan's killing intent soared. Thinking of the astonishing treasure he'd borrowed made him even more confident of success. He stood on his crystalline sword as he entered the mountains, gaze sweeping back and forth. As a 9th-level Qi condensation inner sect disciple, he had a voice transmission Jade slip and used it to inform nearby disciples to notify him immediately if they spotted Meng Hao. After a short time, Liu Dayan soared through the air and suddenly tapped his bag of holding. A glowing Jade slip appeared. He pressed it to his forehead and laughed, then changed course, shooting toward the disciple who'd contacted him. The time it takes half an incense stick to burn past. Then Liu Dayan caught sight of Meng Hao, moving forward on his treasured fan, the man who had killed a Cold Wind sect disciple in one move by piercing his head. At this moment Meng Hao looked back and saw Liu Dayan. He frowned. Since experiencing the invisible hand sensation, he'd felt watched. Sure enough, he soon noticed several cultivators from the three great sects nearby. There was no way to avoid them. Even if he attacked and killed them as quickly as possible, the word would surely spread via Jade slips. "Meng Hao," shouted Liu Dayan. His right hand flickered in incantation, and the flying sword beneath his feet droned and shot forward. "Run from this, I'll rip you to pieces. Only then can I resolve the hatred in my heart." Liu Dayan's eyes had turned red at the sight of Meng Hao, his killing intent fierce. Meng Hao's eyes flashed. He was about to move forward when his mind trembled. A sliver of spiritual sense remaining caused him to jerk backward. A fierce wind arose as the flying sword approached, spinning the crystalline sword away. At the same time, an old man suddenly appeared. He wore a purplish-blue robe with age spots on his face, but his eyes shined with fear-inspiring might that could make one's spirit tremble. His eyes seemed to contain the sun, moon, and stars. You might be lost if you looked into them. A strange design was stitched onto his blue robe, an altar with a solitary eye in its center. This eye seemed filled with even more woe than the old man's. "Such strong grievances," he said coolly, looking at Liu Dayan. When he spoke, the spiritual energy around Meng Hao flew into chaos. He felt bound in place and experienced once again the invisible hand clawing at his heart. His face flickered, his heart pounding. When Liu Dayan saw the old man, his face fell, and he immediately took a few steps back and raised hands in a salute. "I am Liu Dayan of the junior generation. Greetings, Lord Revelation." As Liu Dayan saluted, 6 figures appeared in the sky. Though distant, they arrived in the space of a single breath. Meng Hao's heart sank when he saw them. They were familiar, the core formation eccentrics of the state of Zhao who had appeared when the Reliance sect dissolved. One was a woman who had left a deep impression on him. Shortly after, the sky filled with droning streaks of light as over 10 people approached, not soaring but flying, sending thunderous roars into the air. Birds and beasts nearby quivered. As they arrived, their eyes all fell on Meng Hao. His face grew grim as he looked around. He saw the irritable foundation establishment cultivator who had tried to attack him that day. Powerful pressure fell on the area. Liu Daiyun's face grew pale and he retreated. His killing intent was hidden for the moment, but venom was clear on his face. Meng Hao's heart sank. Today there was nowhere to hide. After a moment, his expression returned to normal. He took a deep breath and looked around at the state of Zhao experts, saying nothing. This chapter was sponsored by Anand Manthrupragada, Palin Tapaniuorwang, Shauna Avila, and Patrick Laplante. Chapter 78, No Choice But to Believe. Fellow Taoist revelation truly deserves his reputation for ingenious divinations, said one of the core formation eccentrics. He laughed. He arrived faster than we did. You three sects didn't notify me, so I divined things for myself, said Lord Revelation coolly. Very well, said one of the cold wind sect core formation eccentrics. He wore a long black robe. Now that the kid has been found, it won't be long before we can get into Patriarch Reliance's meditation zone. This matter has been going on for quite a while. Even the great sects in the southern domain are aware of what's going on. His gaze had fallen onto Meng Hao, and he looked at him expressionlessly, as if he were cricket. The lot of them didn't pay him any heed whatsoever as they spoke, as if they knew that their words could decide his life or death. In fact, their conversation would determine his fate. Meng Hao said nothing. He knew he'd have to find a way to counter their bullying. His mind spun, analyzing the situation. Patriarch, said Liu Daiyun, bowing with clasped hands toward one of his sect's core formation eccentrics. This person has a treasured spear hidden on his person. He lifted his head and looked at Meng Hao with a sneer, the venom written clearly on his face. So the tiny chi condensation cultivator is 9th level, said the black-robed one coolly, his face perpetually red. No wonder he threw the state of Zhao's cultivation world into chaos. He lifted his hand toward Meng Hao as if to grab him. I am here and so is the spear, said Meng Hao suddenly, his eyes flashing. His voice could sever nails and slice iron. A wild look appeared in his eyes that seemed to say he knew he was powerless to prevent them from taking his treasures, but if they did, he would end his own life immediately. Hearing Meng Hao speak, the old man who had been about to make a move on him stopped and frowned. The onlookers also frowned. My cultivation base is low and weak, said Meng Hao. If the older generation wishes to rob my treasures, please do so, but if I lose even one, I will end my life. Dead, I cannot take you to Founder Patriarch's meditation zone. I would rather die than be robbed. His face shone with determination. I can just kill you, said one of the 6 core formation cultivators, then use a heaven-defying soul search to drag the location out of you. Meng Hao heard this and let out a hearty laugh. No fear showed in his eyes. His laughter echoed through the mountains, stabbing into the ears of the old eccentrics. Go ahead and search me then. Only inner sect disciples know the Patriarch's meditation zone's location, but even with it, without me alive, conscious, and unharmed, you'll never enter. The old eccentric stared at him with ice-cold eyes. You of the elder generation have profound cultivation bases. Surely you know spirit puppetry arts, but without my consciousness or if I am injured, you won't enter. You must have my complete support. Decisiveness filled Meng Hao's voice. He gave them the feeling that he had thrown all caution to the wind, which made them frown. Actually, when it came to Meng Hao, they didn't care so much about him. What they truly were interested in was Patriarch Reliance's sublime spirit scripture. The eccentrics frowned and then looked toward Lord Revelation. He stared at Meng Hao, eyes flashing. Though capable of divining much, he couldn't divine anything about this matter. All eyes fell on him as he spoke. I can't divine the details, but even if 95% is false, we still can't gamble on it. His words echoed everyone's thoughts. These eccentrics were experienced, astute, and crafty, yet their scheming couldn't assure victory. They couldn't afford to bet. Even if most of Meng Hao's words were lies, some truth might remain. If they failed, they lost the chance to enter Patriarch Reliance's Immortal's Cave and any chance at the Sublime Spirit Scripture. Anyone, Foundation Establishment or Core Formation, could use the Chi Condensation Manual to form a second core lake within their bodies and repair Tao pillars from Foundation Establishment. Success could transform a cracked foundation into a flawless one. For core formation cultivators, this greatly influenced their core level, something they all yearned for. There were only 3 great books in the world which contained the secrets methods of how to cultivate a new core lake, even beyond the Chi condensation stage. Very well, said one of the 6, a noble-looking old woman with a hoarse voice. When her words rang out, everyone grew silent. We are here for the sublime spirit scripture. There's no need to cause further complications. "Child, we won't steal any of your treasures, nor will we soul-search you or turn you into a puppet. But you must assist us, otherwise you are well aware of what the consequences will be. Which is more important, your life or the patriarch's? As for which decision is best, I'm sure you don't need our advice on that." Meng Hao was silent a moment, then said, "Give me 1,000,000 spirit stones, and I demand the right to kill this person." His eyes flashed as he pointed at Liu Dayan. Liu Dayan's face grew somber, venom flickering in his eyes. He'd been contemplating ways to kill Meng Hao. Being singled out caused him to instinctively step back a few paces. His heart raced, cold sweat beating on his forehead. He knew these patriarchs would likely yield to Meng Hao's demands to get what they wanted. "Patriarchs?" said Liu Dayan, his face pale as he looked up at the two core formation patriarchs from the Cold Wind sect. The red-faced old man gave a cold snort. He flicked his sleeve and looked at Meng Hao with cold eyes. "That will not happen. Tiny Qi condensation cultivator, you have an exaggerated opinion of yourself. You dare to make demands of us." "Meng Hao," said one of the core formation eccentrics, an old man in a red robe, "don't bring up the matter of killing again, and as for the spirit stones, we have no way to meet your demand. If I get no spirit stones and this man lives, I will not take you to the Patriarch's meditation zone. Without my heartfelt consent, you'll never enter his immortal's cave." Meng Hao's voice was resolute, his face showing he was ready to risk everything. He would die without even a frown if he had to. "Meng Hao," Liu Dayan stared at him murderously, his eyes filling up with killing intent. "Very well," said the dignified old woman. "This Cold Wind sect disciple, denied. The spirit stones, though, I'll take responsibility. 100,000 now, the rest after we open the immortal's cave." Without demands, Meng Hao would have aroused suspicion. She flicked her sleeve and a bag of holding flew toward him. He didn't catch it, but instead moved backward and let the bag fall to the ground. "Very well," said Meng Hao slowly. "The killing is off the table. Liu Dayan, pick up that bag of holding and take the spirit stones out of it." The woman's eyes flickered imperceptibly. The other eccentric's eyes flickered as well. Liu Dayan was furious. However, Meng Hao's request wasn't excessive. Even the red-faced old man said nothing, simply indicating for Liu Dayan to comply. Liu Dayan took a deep breath, pushed down his fury, and walked forward to pick up the bag. He shook it, and a massive amount of spirit stones poured out, glittering brightly. Liu Dayan stared for a moment, then started breathing faster. Meng Hao studied the spirit stones calmly, then collected them into his bag of holding. He had to be cautious. These weren't foundation establishment cultivators but core formation ones. Killing him would be easier than stepping on a bug. If they could afford to gamble, he couldn't stand against them at all, in cultivation base or scheming. So Meng Hao didn't attempt tricky plots. He plotted openly, betting that even if these people didn't believe him, they had no choice but to believe. "You have your spirit stones, but this is weighty. Please consume this medicinal pill." The old woman lifted her right hand and a black-colored pill appeared. A wind instantly picked up as if massive spiritual energy were gathering. The image of a wicked centipede slowly became visible on the pill's surface. Meng Hao's expression changed. He looked at the pill cautiously. Liu Dayan's face twisted into a hideous grin. The foundation establishment cultivators watched with expressionless faces, though their eyes sneered at Meng Hao. The core formation eccentrics didn't bat an eye. If the old woman hadn't produced a pill, they might have. Their eyes glittered as they watched. In scheming, Meng Hao was like a child compared to them. If his plots had displeased them, any ideas would be useless. "Consume the pill and lead the way. Refuse, and we'll use soul search and spirit puppetry." The old woman spoke coolly, her expression neutral. She flicked her fingers and the poison pill shot forward to hover before Meng Hao. Meng Hao hesitated. He wasn't sure if the pill was truly poisonous or something worse, but he had no other choice. He clenched his jaw and reached out to grab it. "Speaking of poison pills, I have one as well," said the red-faced old man with a laugh. He flicked his sleeve and a reddish pill appeared. It flew to Meng Hao. "Actually, our sect has one too." The core formation cultivators from all three sects had poison pills, which transformed into beams of light as they flew toward him. The old woman's face was calm, her thoughts unreadable. She looked around coolly at her fellow eccentrics, saying nothing. They were circumspect and far-seeing. If Meng Hao swallowed one pill, he might as well swallow more. This way, he wouldn't be under just the old woman's control. This was fair. Seeing the fellow Taoist's actions, I must save my own face. Lord Revelation smiled and waved his right hand. A three-colored pill appeared and raced toward Meng Hao. Compared to the others, this pill appeared extraordinary. When Meng Hao's gaze fell on it, his entire body felt jittery. Chapter 79, Kill. 4 poison pills, said Meng Hao grimly. I worry that if I consume them, I won't be able to lead you forward. If the poison takes effect, I die. If it doesn't, how will you ensure I can dispel it later? Have you not considered this? Of course there is a poison dispelling technique, said the red-faced old man, expressionless. Whether you believe is your choice. He used Meng Hao's own tactic against him. The complete resolution now rested on Meng Hao. He stood silently for a moment. As the man had said, the choice to believe lay in him alone. Unfortunately, if he chose not to believe, then the current situation would never be resolved. Meng Hao's eyes glanced over the 4 pills. 3 of them he recognized. This is a centipede dragon pill. This is a frigid corpse pill, and this is a blood-withering pill. As for this one, Lord Revelation's 3-colored pill was unfamiliar. No information about it existed in the ancient Jade slip. Patriarch Reliance's cultivation base is as high as the heavens, Meng Hao muttered. He should figure it out. He clenched his jaw, lifted his hands, and put one pill into his mouth. It appeared to contain something alive, and indeed Meng Hao felt searing pain as it slid down. Yet the pain didn't cause him to hesitate. Eyes bloodshot, he forced down all the pills. As he swallowed the pill given to him by Lord Revelation, he looked the man in the eyes. Lord Revelation smiled throughout. Meng Hao didn't hesitate. He knew he had to swallow the pills to allay everyone's suspicions. As Lord Revelation's pill entered his mouth, it dissolved into an aura that seeped into his flesh and blood. Seeing Meng Hao swallow the 4 pills in succession left Liu Dai unpleased. The Foundation establishment cultivators watched Meng Hao with strange expressions. His resoluteness made them more vigilant. Meng Hao took a deep breath. His expression grim, he looked up at the eccentrics. He said nothing. Let's go, said the old woman with a nod. She waved a finger at Meng Hao, turned into a prismatic rainbow, and shot away. The other cultivators followed. Her wave transformed the bag on the ground into a hideous mist spirit that wrapped around Meng Hao and shot into the sky. Liu Daiyan followed along, looking at Meng Hao with a cold smile. You're dead, he said grimly. Meng Hao didn't reply, only looked coldly at Liu Daiyan's twisted face. After you take the patriarchs into the immortals' cave, just wait until you come back out. You're dead for sure. Even if you dispel the poison, I won't let you go. There's nowhere you can run to in the state of Zhao. By the way, you're a Reliance Inner Sect disciple, yet you have no choice but to lead people to kill your own sect's patriarch. How does that feel? Liu Daiyan's malicious words were filled with ridicule. You killed Sun Hua over a silver spear. How does that feel? Said Meng Hao coolly, looking down at Liu Daiyan. The earth sped past beneath him at a speed he'd never achieved before. Meng Hao didn't care about Liu Daiyan at all, but his words hit like a stick jabbed into a fresh wound. Liu Daiyan's eyes turned red, and he stared with matchless hatred, wishing to rip Meng Hao into pieces. The Sun Hua incident was the most humiliating thing in his life and had ruined his prospects within the sect. He'd been cast aside. Now his eyes seemed ready to shoot flames as he clenched his fists and glared murderously. Meng Hao's expressionless face arose an indescribable feeling that threatened to drive him mad. He punched the air. Panting, he gritted his teeth before saying, You swallowed 4 poison pills. I'll wait until the poison takes effect. Your body will rot and your heart will be torn apart. Today, you will die beneath my sword, said Meng Hao coolly, sounding neither happy nor angry. He looked down at the barren mountains whizzing by beneath him, and then at the 4 mountain peaks of the Reliance sect off in the distance. You sure can talk big, said Liu Daiyan with a cold laugh and a sinister expression. It seemed he didn't take Meng Hao's words seriously at all. You'll do that all by yourself. I can't wait to see the poison kick in. As he finished speaking, the group arrived at the Reliance sect's main square with a booming sound. It was deserted, occupied only by fallen leaves, bird droppings, and scattered animals. A fierce wind swept the outer sect square clean. Meng Hao's face flickered with various expressions. What does it feel like to see your sect like this, Meng Hao? Liu Daiyan sneered. Meng Hao turned and looked at him, killing intent springing from his eyes. He'd already begun moving. He lifted his hand and 50 flying swords appeared, flying straight at Liu Daiyan. I think this place is the perfect location to bury you in. There was no indication Meng Hao would attack. His words echoed as the swords reached Liu Daiyan. His expression changed. He'd never imagined Meng Hao would dare attack in front of all the patriarchs. He shot backward, bit his tongue, and spit blood along with a pearl. This pearl was different from his other treasures. As it flew from his mouth, It radiated intense killing aura and transformed into a hideous, black demonic face that slammed into Meng Hao's 50 swords. An explosion reverberated as the demonic face blocked most swords. However, one pierced through and continued toward Liu Dayan. Liu Dayan's face twisted. He was in a critical life-or-death situation. He howled and threw up his arm to defend. The sword stabbed through his right shoulder, blood spraying. A horrified shriek echoed throughout the deserted sect. As the sword stabbed into his shoulder, it exploded, causing his right arm to disappear into a cloud of blood. Blood sprayed from his mouth as he retreated, face pale, eyes shining with fear and astonishment. Everything happened in the space it takes for a spark to fly. His right arm was destroyed, his horrified screams echoing. The three sect's eccentrics looked back one by one, eyes cold, especially the cold wind sect. Liu Dayan retreated, shrieking and howling. Patriarch's this guy. His expression cold, Meng Hao stepped forward. As Liu Dayan spoke, Meng Hao waved his right hand, and 100 swords appeared, covering the entire square in a massive sword rain that descended on Liu Dayan. Both were 9th level, but Meng Hao's cultivation was based on the sublime spirit scripture with a golden corsi. He even possessed a sliver of spiritual sense, more than enough to crush Liu Dayan. The sword rain whistled through the air. Liu Dayan had no more time for speaking. There was a boom, and Liu Dayan spit more blood. A glittering light shone as his crystalline sword defied the 100 swords, yet this itself caused more injury as he retreated, howling. Patriarch, save me. Meng Hao, hold your hand, came a voice from the 4 Foundation establishment experts from the Cold Wind sect. They frowned, unwilling to let Meng Hao slay Liu Dayan. Their bodies turned into beams of light as they sped forward. This is between me and him, said Meng Hao, not looking at the experts. Even if the poison takes effect now, I will kill this man, his expression filled with murder and resolve. He wanted to kill Liu Dayan, but others from the other sects were present. They wouldn't stand by and watch Meng Hao be poisoned to death before opening the Immortal's cave. Small matters from other sects wouldn't interfere with their interests. The others flew forward, blocking the path of the Cold Wind sect Foundation establishment experts. Fellow Taoist Zhang, no need to mind the trifling matters of qi condensation cultivators. We haven't seen each other for years. Why not chat about old times? Correct, Brother Chen, we haven't seen each other for 3 years. I have questions about cultivation to discuss. The 4 Cold Wind sect experts' faces grew livid. They were about to speak when Liu Dayan let out another horrified scream. Meng Hao's fingers flickered in incantation, and 200 swords filled the sky, descending with ear-piercing whistles. He took another step forward and flashed an incantation. A flame python emerged, dozens of meters long, roaring across the square. Blood sprayed from Liu Dayan's mouth as his crystalline sword shattered. He retreated constantly, desperation filling his eyes. Meng Hao's eyes shone with killing intent and determination. He flew forward, and the wooden sword appeared in his right hand, speeding toward Liu Dayan with unstoppable force. Get out of my way, the 4 experts' faces changed. They howled and attempted to force through to block Meng Hao. This man tried to kill me many times. This is a personal grudge. If anyone gets in my way, I'll kill myself before opening the Patriarch's Immortal's cave. He completely ignored the 4 experts. Without hesitation, he shot toward Liu Dayan, the wooden sword outstretched, clearly intending to slay him. Patriarch, save me, Liu Dayan screamed. The Foundation establishment experts were about to attack when a dry cough sounded from the old woman. Shock filled the 4 experts' hearts, and they instantly froze, faces pale. The cough had slammed into their hearts like a heavenly lightning bolt, sending their minds spinning. This is too much, said the red-faced old man. He snorted, and a cold look shot from his eye toward Meng Hao. Even as this happened, Lord Revelation let out a hearty laugh. He flicked his sleeve, and the cold look instantly fell apart. You, said the red-faced old man, his eyes filled with rage. This chapter was sponsored by Crystal Riva. Chapter 80, Meng Hao's Scheming. Fellow Taoist, no need to lose your temper, said Lord Revelation, smiling. As for these trifling matters amongst the junior generation, why not just watch? As the words were exchanged, Liu Dayan let out another miserable cry. Meng Hao stepped forward and with a sword slash sent Liu Dayan's left arm flying from his body. Blood sprayed everywhere. More swords flew from Meng Hao's bag. One after another, they stabbed into him. In an instant, a dozen swords penetrated Liu Dayan's body. Leaning toward him, Meng Hao quietly said, "If I say you will die this day, then die you shall." Despair filled Liu Dayan's wide eyes. Blood seeped out of his mouth. The four Foundation establishment cultivators watched in shock. They were especially astounded by Meng Hao's vicious expression. "Enough," said one of the Cold Wind sect eccentrics, his face extremely unsightly. He waved his finger, and the spiritual energy in the area churned and raced toward Meng Hao. It wrapped around his body, leaving his spiritual energy untouched but pulling him away from Liu Dayan. As Meng Hao drifted away, hope gleamed in Liu Dayan's eyes despite his wounds. "Boom," said Meng Hao coolly, the killing intent in his eyes flashing. As the word left his mouth, the dozen swords in Liu Dayan's body detonated. A blood-curdling scream echoed in all directions. His body was torn to pieces, not even his head left intact as flesh flew outward. The four Foundation establishment cultivators' pupils shrank to dots. They stared at the gore, then at Meng Hao's expressionless face. They would never forget this moment. Especially memorable was the speed of his attack and the decisiveness in his voice. It revealed his extraordinary thinking. He had turned everyone not from the Cold Wind sect into his assistants. The grisly result revealed his stubbornness. Anyone else might be able to think of such a plan, but few people would have the gall to pull it off. As of this day, they had witnessed Meng Hao's first true kill. "He's dead, you can release me now," said Meng Hao indifferently. The core formation eccentrics floated in the air, staring down at Meng Hao. His resoluteness to kill left a deep impression in their hearts. Even Lord Revelation took a long look at him. Everything that had happened just now gave him a glimpse of the cruelty Meng Hao was capable of. The Cold Wind sect patriarch holding Meng Hao bound had a grim look. Meng Hao had killed Liu Dayan in front of him, even after he intervened. He'd lost face. With a mere thought, he could rip Meng Hao to pieces like Liu Dayan, but the surrounding cultivators' expressions made this impossible. With a cold snort, he flicked his sleeve and the invisible bonds disappeared. But he still hit Meng Hao with an invisible attack, causing him to spit out blood. Meng Hao looked at him, face pale, eyes shining with a dark look. "Liu Dayan constantly ridiculed and swore to kill me," said Meng Hao, looking at the eccentric who injured him. "I had no choice but to attack first. I request you preside impartially. I worry the Cold Wind sect will withhold their antidote. Could you please produce it so I can rest at ease when I open Patriarch Reliance's Immortal's Cave?" The four Foundation establishment cultivators' eyes flashed, as they suddenly comprehended how cruel and treacherous Meng Hao was. The core formation eccentrics' eyes flickered upon hearing Meng Hao's words. They instantly understood his thinking and frowned as they looked at the two Cold Wind sect experts. Their faces were ice cold. "With scheming like yours, you'll find it hard to stay in the state of Zhao," said Lord Revelation. "I have an opening for a servant, Meng Hao. Consider it." His eyes twinkled as he looked at Meng Hao. His smile was as grim and mysterious as the decoration on his robe, a solitary eye in a mystical square. The red-faced old man harumphed. The three sects didn't usually get along, and he was aware the surrounding cultivators gazed at him with flashing eyes. He didn't want complications, but he'd marked Meng Hao for death. He waved his right hand, and a white-colored pill appeared and shot toward Meng Hao. It emitted a fragrant aroma. From studying the ancient Jade slip, Meng Hao could tell at a glance this was the antidote for the frigid corpse pill. He grabbed it but didn't eat it, instead putting it into his bag of holding. Then he took a breath and headed toward the East Mountains peak. The three sects experts watched him closely, ready to move instantly if he did anything unusual. Lord Revelation floated nearby, eyes glittering as he gazed at the East Mountain. Meng Hao didn't soar directly to the peak. The eccentrics would have to be patient. He walked the path up the East Mountain, passing Wang Tengfei's Immortal's Cave. He caught sight of elder brother Chen's and elder sister Su's caves. Images from the past coalesced and he sighed. Finally, he stopped in front of his old Immortal's Cave. He looked at it quietly, then moved on, eventually reaching the East Mountains peak and the Reliance sect's main temple hall. The setting sun shone onto the hall, making it look dignified. Meng Hao strode inside with broad steps. His gaze swept over the statues and came to rest on Patriarch Reliance's. When Patriarch Reliance frightened off cultivators from other sects, he had told Meng Hao the secret method to open his Immortal's Cave. Now, over a year later, Meng Hao had finally returned. The appointed year had already passed. As Meng Hao approached Patriarch Reliance's statue, the state of Zhao experts watched from behind. Took a deep breath, lifted his right hand and pushed his finger against a spot on the statue. Every few seconds he pushed the same spot, again and again until he had pushed it 179 times. The temple hall suddenly began to shudder. The statue shook violently and shattered, causing the entire hall to collapse. Then, brilliant light shined from Patriarch Reliance's statue, sweeping away all debris and rubble, leaving only the statue. Beneath the statue was a stone platform. The surrounding cultivators' eyes shone with anticipation. The statue radiated incredible power, its eyes shining as if alive. The cultivators grew more excited, though none dared approach. Meng Hao took a few steps back and bowed deeply. Disciple Meng Hao wishes to disturb the Patriarch's slumber. Patriarch, please open the door to your immortal's cave. He lifted his head, eyes glittering. His back to the experts, his lips moved as he murmured complicated sounds. Converge. The instant the word left his mouth, the statue vibrated, and even more brilliant light shone from its eyes. The light grew intensely bright, and a fierce wind kicked up. Astonishment covered the experts' faces. Cracks appeared on the statue's surface, more and more. Within a few breaths, it exploded with a bang, pieces flying in all directions. The stone platform beneath began to issue blinding light. The blinding light from the rotating spell caused the experts to breathe heavily. Anyone familiar with such spells could tell it was a sealing spell being unbound. A thunderous roar echoed, and a beam of light shot into the sky. The beam twisted around until it formed a giant ring. The inside of the ring grew blurry and transformed into a vortex, a passageway to another location. As the ring of light formed, Meng Hao leaped into the air and shot forward, disappearing into it. Behind him, the state of Zhao experts hesitated, their faces twisting. Foundation Establishment Disciples go first, said Lord Revelation. The 6 core formation cultivators nodded, and the Foundation Establishment cultivators gritted their teeth and flew forward, disappearing into the vortex. After 10 breaths, Lord Revelation and the core formation eccentrics exchanged glances. One member from each of the 3 sects went next. After they entered, the remaining eccentrics and Lord Revelation followed. Upon entering the vortex, their minds spun and they breathed hard. Looking around, they first saw an enormous stone stele with golden characters inscribed on it. The characters at the very top made their eyes shine. Sublime Spirit Scripture. Chapter 81, The Patriarch's Immortal's Cave. In Patriarch Reliance's meditation zone, the cultivators from the state of Zhao stared at the stone stele left behind by Chen Fan 1. Chen Fan left behind in Chapter 40, copying the text onto Jade slips with great enthusiasm. This stone stele is the Sublime Spirit Scripture. I never imagined it would be so simple to get. Haha, even though I've already established my foundation, with this scripture, I can form a second core C. With this Qi condensation manual, I can raise the Tao pillars of my foundation from fractured to cracked. It might even be possible to form a flawless foundation. Lord Revelation approached, followed by the dignified old woman. No, she said, only half of the scripture is here. She could tell the truth of it from a single glance. Lord Revelation continued forward a few steps, his eyes shining with a strange light. Suddenly, the stele, as if it couldn't withstand so many gazes, began to fracture. Popping sounds echoed as cracks spread across it, and everyone watched in shock. As the cracks spread, the golden characters faded to be replaced by another set of characters, these ones dim and barely readable. These characters were the second half of the Qi condensation manual of the Sublime Spirit Scripture. Before everyone could finish reading the text, a boom rang out and the stone stele exploded, fragmenting into 8 pieces. 8 multicolored beams of light could be seen as the pieces flew off in various directions. The onlookers were shocked but immediately scattered about. The 7 core formation eccentrics each shot after one of the pieces, as did Lord Revelation. The 8th piece was left to the 10 or so Foundation Establishment experts to deal with. Everything descended into chaos. As they scattered, the newcomers discovered Patriarch Reliance's meditation zone brimming with magical items, spirit stones, and medicinal pills, a sight that stirred great excitement. Unfortunately, all were protected by restrictive spells. Unless forced open, they remained untouchable. Suddenly, roaring sounds erupted within the meditation zone. Within the gray light appeared multiple figures. With crazed appearances, they charged toward the intruders. As soon as chaos erupted, Meng Hao pulled out a vorpal jade blood crystal and stepped aside. He'd used many during his last visit but had 2 left, which he'd kept in his bag of holding. The crazed automatons that appeared refused to approach him. I've brought everyone here. Now let's see how Patriarch Reliance deals with them. Meng Hao's eyes glittered coldly. He didn't have any good feelings whatsoever about these people. He watched as they went chasing after the fragments of the stone steel, a cold smile on his face. He couldn't wait to see them dead. Of course, the stone steel was a fake. He'd known that the instant it had appeared, a year ago. Exercising caution, he slowly walked forward, avoiding the other cultivators. He wasn't sure of the exact location where Patriarch Reliance sat in secluded meditation, but he knew that he couldn't leave this place until the Patriarch helped him dispel the poison from his body. Also, there was the reward that the Patriarch had spoken of. Shortly after, Meng Hao stopped and looked around. Booms filled the air as explosions shook the ground. Off in the distance, the dignified old woman's hair flew wildly as she unleashed magical arts against a glowing shield. Within the glow of the shield was one of the stone steel fragments. A core formation cultivator, her attack shook everything around her. Her magical arts shot out like a silver river, sending bone-piercing coldness that froze everything into ice. Within the river echoed the shrieks of countless wailing souls from the yellow springs of the underworld, as if the river itself had sprung from the 9 hells. She flicked her sleeve, and a murky mountain appeared, bearing down toward the shield. Seemingly composed of stars, it solidified into a burning point, then became black. Despite the blackness, it radiated brilliant light. The river and mountain interlocked. Meng Hao took a deep breath. The silver strands surrounding the old woman made her seem capable of destroying heaven and earth. She could slay him as easily as stepping on an ant, without needing the river from hell or the mountain made of stars. So this is core formation. Meng Hao watched closely, at the same time moving a bit further away. He didn't dare to get any closer. The woman let out a howl and an explosion reverberated out. Despite his distance, Meng Hao's body shook and he spat blood. He retreated further as the woman spat out a round pill from her mouth, 3 intertwined colors. As it appeared, Meng Hao felt everything in the world about to crumble. The multicolored pill was the beginning and end of everything. It shot toward the shield, triggering a massive explosion. Meng Hao retreated, his face pale. A core formation cultivator could wipe me from existence in a heartbeat. Retreating, he thought back to Dao protector Wang Zifen too. If you forgot about what happened between Wang Zifen and Meng Hao, then check out Chapter 35, from the Wang clan. I'm at the 9th level of Qi condensation. Even at the 10th level, I'd be too weak to withstand a single spell from a core formation cultivator. He watched the proceedings, continuing to retreat. All these people are over 100 years old. In wisdom and experience I cannot match them. It's fortunate my schemes worked, or else. His heart twitched with fear. Beyond core formation lies the nascent soul stage. How powerful is a nascent soul cultivator? His heart thumped as he thought of eccentric Song, whom he still had never met. What is Patriarch Reliance's cultivation base? I remember the sect leader mentioning it, spirit severing stage, beyond even the nascent soul stage. Meng Hao began to pant, envy in his eyes. Stubbornness filled his heart, a burning desire for power. Only by being powerful could he avoid being an insect others trampled and crushed. Only power would let him achieve his desires and fulfill his dreams. On a more practical level, only by being powerful would he be able to survive in the cultivation world. Meng Hao watched in awe as the 7 core formation cultivators unleashed their power. Massive explosions erupted across the meditation zone simultaneously, filling the entire area with thunderous roars and rippling protective spells. The explosion seemed poised to collapse everything. The Patriarch only said to bring the state of Zhao experts here, not what to do after. Meng Hao hesitated, considering escape. Then a massive roar sounded, and far off, a beam of light shot upward. From this distance it didn't look very thick. However, Meng Hao could tell that it must be approximately 30 meters in diameter. It filled the sky of the Immortal's cave with its power. A laugh echoed out from the same direction as the beam of light, and Meng Hao recognized Lord Revelation's voice. He had obviously broken the shield and acquired one of the fragments of the stone steel. Just then, another boom rang out and another beam shot upward. It came from the dignified old woman's direction. Her hair flew wildly as the shield shattered, and she took the stone steel fragment. Within the secluded meditation zone, Patriarch Reliance's eyes shone, and he breathed rapidly. His gaunt, wizened body stared fixedly at 7 oil lamps spread before him. Though scattered at first glance, they arranged in a mystical pattern upon closer inspection. Just now 2 of the lamps had been extinguished. The other 5 flickered weakly. The kid came a few months late. I was growing nervous, but he brought them. Excitement filled his eyes as he studied the lamps. Extinguished, damn it. These people are weak. After all this time, they've only extinguished 2 lamps. I'm expending my own cultivation base to weaken them so the core formation experts can manage, but still nothing. Damn it. Without my training, these state of Zhao brats don't know how to cultivate properly. In the old days, I'd beat them regularly. They had much better cultivation bases. Patriarch Reliance sighed, thinking of the past. His desire to break the seal grew stronger. After absorbing their cultivation bases and memories, I can achieve enlightenment and succeed in my second severing. Then I'll execute my master plan. Damn it. Each severing requires Tao enlightenment. After success, I become incredibly weak. Without good fortune to aid recovery, severing can lead to death and merging with the Tao. Patriarch Reliance ground his teeth. But as he thought of his master plan, hope gleamed in his eyes, a look that had existed there for many years. Then an explosion thundered out, and another lamp extinguished. Anticipation grew stronger in his eyes. Meng Hao stood in the meditation zone, trembling with fear. He stopped moving and concealed himself in a distant corner, vigilant. He waited for Patriarch Reliance to appear, end these people, dispel the poison in his body, and give him his reward. A short time later, another roar sounded. Lord Revelation and the dignified old woman joined the struggle. The remaining shields shattered, third, fourth, fifth. In the time it took an incense stick to burn, thunderous explosions erupted constantly. Soon, 7 pillars of light shot skyward. Finally, the 7 core formation cultivators became beams of light, converging on the final shield surrounded by the Foundation establishment experts. They combined their power, and within 10 breaths, a boom shook everything as an 8th pillar shot upward. The Immortals' cave seemed on the verge of collapse. At that moment, massive cracks appeared in the ground amidst the roaring and shaking. The roaring grew more intense, and the ground rippled as if collapsing. The state of Zhao experts looked shocked. They flew upward, watching the earth collapse. Within moments the shaking ceased. The rubble and cracks had formed a massive face. Patriarch Reliances. This chapter was sponsored by Patrick Laplante, Zamuel Medja, and Jago Spencer. Chapter 82, The Great Art of Demonic Life. 7 ancient oil lamps appeared on the giant face's forehead, all extinguished. A massive, ancient aura emanated outward, containing the essence of heaven and earth. When the giant face appeared, the state of Zhao cultivators looked shocked, some moving to flee. "Don't panic," boomed Lord Revelation. "I knew from the start that Patriarch Reliance wasn't dead. He's incredibly weak and we're core formation. If we join hands, we can easily destroy him." The cultivators stopped moving. A hoarse, potent laugh rang out from the giant face, filled with crazed excitement, piercing ears and hearts alike. The floating cultivators' faces changed. Without a word, the dignified old woman shot toward the exit, panting. A massive, indistinct hand materialized next to her and wrapped around her body. A boom sounded with a blood-curdling shriek as the hand crushed her to death. Everything shook, and Meng Hao watched in shock. The giant hand opened, revealing a 3-colored mixed core. It flicked, and the core shot toward the first lamp below, igniting it. The lamp burned the core as fuel, emanating flames of pure life force. Flickering firelight emanated out, filling the darkness with light. "We cannot flee," barked Lord Revelation, his face paling. "Kill what remains of Patriarch Reliance and our spoils will be immense." The cultivators looked astonished after watching the old woman's fate. They clenched their jaws. Suddenly, a boom sounded. The area around the giant face's mouth collapsed, and a black, shadowy figure emerged. Laughter echoed through the Immortals' cave. "Patriarch Reliance," the laughter thundered and the cave shook. The shocked cultivators coughed blood. Amid the blackness, Patriarch Reliance appeared, gaunt, nothing but skin and bones as if risen from the grave. His eyes were dim and dark, yet filled with ferocity and power. Clouds rolled above and ripples emanated from his body. He seemed to stand atop the world. His power, arrogance, and thirst for blood struck fear into the hearts of the other cultivators. Patriarch Reliance. The red-faced old man from the cold wind sect paled, trembling. Though a core formation cultivator, he was powerless as a cricket before Patriarch Reliance. He dared come only because Lord Revelation had divined the Patriarch was dying, yet he seemed anything but weak now. "Revelation, we're not finished," he said, spinning toward the exit. The others followed suit, transforming into prismatic beams as they shot away. Meng Hao stood down below, staring up at them, his fists clenched. Patriarch Reliance laughed with excitement and bloodlust. His body flickered and he floated in midair. He moved his hand downward and a boom filled the air. Massive pressure pushed down and the red-faced old man and his followers spat blood. They fell, their bodies no longer under their control. Patriarch Reliance flickered again, standing before the red-faced old man. The old man's pupils shrank as Patriarch Reliance's body suddenly fused with his. A blood-curdling scream sounded, numbing the onlookers' scalps. The old man's body withered. His hair fell out as flesh and blood dried up. Blackness consumed everything: blood, life, flesh. In a blink it had swallowed him completely. His skin became paper-thin, his bones crumbled. He became a mist of blood that coalesced into Patriarch Reliance. Yet now he was less gaunt, more fleshed out, a slight death aura radiating from him. Some life force had been restored. He held the old man's three-colored mixed core, which he flicked into the second lamp. The great art of demonic life. The legendary great art of demonic life. Unending life. It can borrow bodies and spirits. Voices buzzed. The remaining core formation cultivators and trembling foundation establishment experts watched in despair. Demonic magic from the demon sealing sect before the name changed. A strange look flashed through Lord Revelation's eyes. Meng Hao watched in astonishment. This was the second time he'd heard of the demon sealing sect. The first was from Xianxia Audiobook. How could he believe such claims? If he truly connected to such a prestigious sect, why did he have so many enemies in the state of Zhao? He decommitted the name to memory, intending to investigate later. Now, having seen these shocking events, he heard the name again. Demon sealing sect floated in his head. He recalled rumors he'd heard in the sect. 1,000 years ago, the Reliance sect had borne a different name. No one spoke the original name. It seemed taboo. He thought of the demonic beasts in the Black Mountain outside the sect, then of the North Sea. Why had it helped him when he first encountered it? He didn't completely understand, but he was gaining pieces of the puzzle. Demon sealing sect. Meng Hao took a deep breath, thinking of Shangyuan Ziu's demonic magic and the fearsome power that erupted from Mount Daqing. If Shangyuan Ziu reached Foundation establishment, his demonic magic would be extremely potent. Meng Hao's heart raced as he realized that, as a member of the Reliance inner sect, he was also an inner sect disciple of the ancient demon sealing sect. A new question appeared in Meng Hao's mind. Why did Patriarch Reliance change the name of the sect? As Meng Hao pondered this, the slaughter continued. Patriarch Reliance became a fiery mist that filled the air. From the cries, it was clear the Foundation establishment cultivators couldn't escape. One by one, their bodies spasmed and dried up, life force sucked out until they became bones crumbled into dust. Every thread of life force shot toward Patriarch Reliance. The remaining 5 core formation cultivators couldn't flee. Under Lord Revelation's command, they produced magical items and techniques, launching them at Patriarch Reliance in a final attempt. The 4 Foundation establishment cultivators from the Cold Wind sect died miserably, reduced to dust, as did those from the Winding Stream and Upright Evening sects. These people could shake the state of Zhao's cultivation world by stamping a foot. Here, they were as weak as children. A partially intact head rolled to stop at Meng Hao's feet. His face paled. The bloody slaughter made his heart tremble. He recognized the head, the Foundation establishment expert who tried to kill him a year ago in the Reliance sect. A white aura emanated from it. Within moments, it dissolved into blood that soaked into the ground. A horrified scream rang out from one of the Winding Stream sect's core formation cultivators. His body rotted as he screamed and dried up. Before death, a third 3-colored mixed core flew into the third lamp, which burned brightly. Patriarch Reliance's body was no longer gaunt. He was now a middle-aged man. His long hair swept around his tall frame. A dignified air emanated from him, making him seem powerful beyond measure. Yet buried deep within lay a demonic aura. Yet areas of his chest, face, and body remained withered, the flesh twitching and writhing. He wasn't completely recovered. "I can already use the full power of my nascent soul," he said with a smile, gruesome combined with his writhing, partially recovered skin. 4 people remained to observe. Except for Lord Revelation, their faces drained of blood. One lifted a trembling hand holding a jade slip, which he snapped. His body began to blur. He attempted to teleport. A core formation cultivator from the Winding Stream sect retreated rapidly. Burning fire shot from his feet, wrapped around his body, and he became a burning pillar of light, shooting away. A grand elder from the Cold Wind sect suddenly grew younger, his wrinkled face becoming middle-aged. His aura billowing, he took 3 steps and transformed into a beam of light. Chapter 83, Patriarch, what about disciples' poison? As he took the first step, blood and chi roiled. He became a teenager and moved 3 times faster. He took a second step, his body quivering. His robes fell as he became an infant. Again his speed tripled. His body was nearly transparent, a three-colored light enveloping him. By his third step, his infant body shrank into a spinning core. Again his speed tripled as he shot toward the vortex exit. All three were core formation cultivators who wouldn't come unprepared. Everyone else had died too quickly. If even one escaped, he could alert the great sects of the southern domain to come slay Patriarch Reliance. This took time to describe but happened in moments. As they attempted escape, Lord Revelation stayed put, eyes flickering. His right hand flashed an incantation sign. The large eye on his robe seemed to come alive, light springing forth to target the three fleeing core formation cultivators, not Patriarch Reliance. "You've overstepped your bounds," said Patriarch Reliance in an awe-inspiring voice. He stamped his foot, and ripples spread to fill the air. A horrified cry sounded as the winding stream sect cultivator, about to escape, was thrust back down and into the fourth lamp. Patriarch Reliance's right hand slammed the ground. A restrictive spell appeared, from which a black band of light flew, turning into a black skull. The skull circled around Patriarch Reliance, then shot toward the cultivator attempting teleportation. As teleportation ripples spread, the skull cackled evilly and disappeared. Patriarch Reliance lifted his left hand toward the core shooting toward the vortex. Just as it entered, a blood-curdling cry sounded and it exploded, the power contained as it flew back. He snatched it from the air. Within the white glow, the cultivator's body struggled wildly. Patriarch Reliance squeezed the glow, and it congealed into a three-colored core. He flicked it toward the fifth lamp. He waved his left hand, slamming into the light shooting from the eye on Lord Revelation's robe. A boom filled the air, cracks appearing on the ground's restrictive spell. Blood dribbled from Lord Revelation's mouth, his face paling, but his eyes held no panic, only a strange light as he retreated quickly. Massive life force streamed toward Patriarch Reliance, infusing his body. His face was almost completely recovered. He stood looking at Lord Revelation, hands clasped behind his back. "Whose nascent soul clone are you? You dare mingle with these core formation whelps plotting against me?" "You live up to your reputation, Patriarch Reliance," said Lord Revelation with a smile, his voice hoarse. "You knew I was a clone at a glance, but I'm not here to plot against you. Without me, these cultivators wouldn't dare come. I wish to discuss a matter of heavenly fortune with you." His lips quivered slightly. Patriarch Reliance frowned, a thoughtful look in his eyes. Something black flashed above them. The flying skull reappeared with a three-colored core in its mouth. It flew to Patriarch Reliance's side. He flicked his sleeve and the core lit the sixth lamp. Meng Hao's heart trembled. Lord Revelation was a clone, at the nascent soul stage. The goings-on were more complicated than imagined. If his clone is nascent soul, what stage is his true self? Meng Hao took a deep breath, thinking of the three-colored poison pill, his face twisting. "Patriarch Reliance," said Lord Revelation with a smile, "the southern domain will fall into chaos. What are your thoughts?" "The dawn immortal nonsense. I don't care, but since you're here with your nascent soul, I'll replenish myself." His eyes glittered as he stepped forward and raised his hand toward Lord Revelation. "Patriarch Reliance, think clearly. You're a spirit-severing cultivator. Do you really dare defy the dawn immortal?" Lord Revelation's face fell as Patriarch Reliance lifted his finger. A boom resounded as a powerful mist surrounded him. Patriarch Reliance let out a cold snort. The mist seethed, roaring mixed with Lord Revelation's howls as the cave seemed poised to collapse. The restrictive spells nearby began to disintegrate, then repaired themselves. Meng Hao watched in shock as the spells fluctuated between collapse and repair. The mist lifted Lord Revelation higher. He screamed as it squeezed, blood spurting from his body and drenching his clothes. His eyes were filled with hatred. "Demonic art, wolf smoke." Patriarch Reliance's grim voice rang into the mist. It seemed to devour Lord Revelation. Deep inside, brilliant light shone and vague images of flames and smoke appeared. Nothing could be seen clearly, only blood-curdling screams. "Patriarch Reliance, I don't need this clone, but consuming me won't be easy." Images and feelings lashed against Meng Hao. This battle transcended magical techniques. No words sufficed. Patriarch Reliance's powerful voice and Lord Revelation's howls showed how far beyond core formation this battle was. Meng Hao stared blankly, his mind reeling as if a new door opened. This was true cultivation. This was the path of defiance against heaven. This was true power. Booming continued. The mist suddenly contracted, then surrounded Patriarch Reliance. When Meng Hao looked closely, he saw Patriarch Reliance's features resembled Lord Revelation's. He seemed to have occupied Lord Revelation's body. Then the features melted until Lord Revelation was gone, fully absorbed. Immeasurable black ceiling marks rotated around Patriarch Reliance. As he floated in the air, he exuded a bizarre presence. In his hand he held a small figure with a face twisted ferociously, eyes shut. It looked like Lord Revelation. His nascent soul. The mist dispersed, everything silent. The restrictive spells ceased breaking and restored themselves rapidly. Patriarch Reliance flicked his sleeve, and Lord Revelation's nascent soul shot into the seventh lamp. The nascent soul became oil, and his life force became flames as it burned. Lamplight filled the immortal's cave, illuminating everything with a flickering light that felt both ghastly and horrific. Patriarch Reliance looked around, and his gaze came to fall on Meng Hao. He gave him a slight nod, and then turned to head back into the large fissure in the ground. Meng Hao strode forward nervously. Clasping his hands, he bowed and said loudly, "Patriarch, to bring those people, disciple consumed poison pills. Can you dispel the poison?" "It's just poison, I can dispel it easily. Wait a bit. I need to absorb this nascent soul and his true self. Then I'll dispel it. Don't worry, you did well. I have a reward, take this." Without looking back, Patriarch Reliance flicked his sleeve, sending a low-grade spirit stone toward Meng Hao. He landed on the ground and stepped toward the fissure. Meng Hao stared at the ordinary low-grade spirit stone, clenching his jaw. "The reward is a low-grade spirit stone." "It's a low-grade spirit stone," he said coolly. "But if you look closely, is it really?" He jumped toward the fissure. Meng Hao gaped, looking at the stone in his hand. As Patriarch Reliance disappeared, he called out, "Patriarch, how long before you dispel my poison?" "Not long, soon. I only have 3, maybe 500 years of work to do. Okay, secluded meditation now." He muttered about the difficulty of dispelling poison and his incomplete recovery. Based on the cost, it wasn't worth it. Besides, he had his master plan. The spirit stone was just a common low-grade one. He had no qualms deceiving junior members. He'd done it many times before, cheating cultivators in the old demon sealing sect days. He gave a dry cough to gloss everything over, lowered his head, and disappeared. The fissure closed behind him. Chapter 84. Meng Hao, what are you doing? "Patriarch, I endured trials and tribulations to bring these people. I don't need a reward but this poison." Indignation appeared on Meng Hao's face. Before he could finish, the fissure closed completely, leaving no trace. Patriarch Reliance was gone and silent. Only the 7 burning lamps and flickering light remained. The 7 cores and nascent soul released thin streams of chi that were sucked into the ground as soon as they left the lamps. "Patriarch Reliance, I was poisoned because of you. You're from the senior generation, a powerful expert. How could you do this?" "I'm neither expert nor powerful," replied the Patriarch with a light cough. "I've been like this since youth. That's not an ordinary spirit stone, kid. Your cultivation base can't perceive it. Wait until your spirit's severing, then you'll know how amazing it is." "Patriarch, what's happening? I went through so much. Why?" Meng Hao was furious. Everything was silent. Patriarch Reliance said nothing, seemingly ignoring him. "Patriarch, forget rewards. Just dispel the poison. Disciple worked constantly to bring these people and help you recover. How can you do this?" Meng Hao shouted repeatedly, but Patriarch Reliance didn't respond. Though a scholar, Meng Hao was enraged and deceived, unable to stop cursing. "Patriarch Reliance, you're a bastard." His fury was evident. Suddenly, Patriarch Reliance's voice sounded. "Kid, who are you cursing? You dare cuss at me, I'll slap you to death." "You," replied Meng Hao angrily. "Slap me then. I'm poisoned and will die soon anyway. Get out here." Patriarch Reliance coughed. Never mind, I've always had a good temper. You're the sole heir of the Reliance sect. We're the only people here now. I'm not angry with you. Many have cursed me over the years. It doesn't matter. Look, you can't blame me. I can't even leave. My meditation zone is sealed. I could only come out if you brought another group. I can't help you now even if I wanted to." His words grew more convincing. He just renewed the seals and needed months to break through. "You bastard," said Meng Hao, now understanding. He gnashed his teeth and cursed. No matter what, Patriarch Reliance didn't respond. Soon he hummed a little tune. The happy tune echoed, and Meng Hao realized nothing would help. Shameless Patriarch Reliance wouldn't appear. His face dark with anger, he looked around. No bags of holding remained from the core formation experts. Patriarch Reliance had taken them. Meng Hao's gaze fell on the 7 demonic lamps. Gritting his teeth, he slapped his bag. 10 flying swords appeared and flew toward the lamps. Before reaching them, the swords trembled and glowed brightly, then shattered. Meng Hao was livid. Seeing chi from the lamp seep into the ground, he slapped his bag again and 2 wooden swords flew out. They met no resistance, but when they reached the lamps, they passed through as if the lamps weren't there. No reaction. A nascent soul cultivator and 6 core formation cultivators, said Patriarch Reliance cheerfully. Abundant spiritual energy. Your crappy swords, my 7 lamps are cut off from all magical items. Non-sentient things can't affect them. With more skill, you'd have options, but you can't steal from me, he hummed merrily. Seated cross-legged before a small feng shui compass, the chi sinking down turned bright red and was absorbed. Meng Hao's face grew grim as he retrieved the swords. He never imagined Patriarch Reliance, with such an elevated cultivation base, would treat chi condensation cultivators so shamelessly. A simple low-grade spirit stone, and claiming it was extraordinary. No matter how Meng Hao looked at it, it was completely ordinary, just a low-grade spirit stone. Patriarch Reliance was as stingy as an iron chicken from which feathers could not be plucked, a complete miser. 1 low-grade spirit stone. You bastard, you did this on purpose. Meng Hao clenched his fists, feeling like he'd go crazy. All good impressions he'd had of Patriarch Reliance were wiped away. After a while he turned, jaw clenched. He wanted to throw the stone away but put it in his bag instead, then stalked off angrily. Aya leaving? Don't forget to come back to hang out, Patriarch. You're my only heir and we're all the sect has. This is your home, come back anytime. I get lonely, so come keep me company. He continued humming happily. Meng Hao said nothing, walking angrily as Patriarch Reliance's tune echoed in his ears. AI, too bad I'm sealed. Otherwise I'd see you off personally. Patriarch Reliance's voice was cheerful as he watched from his chamber. Meng Hao, you're such a good kid, just uptight. Hopefully you'll learn to be like me. You won't come out, said Meng Hao wrathfully. He walked past an area covered by a gray restrictive spell, then suddenly stopped. Of course not, I never lie. If I can't go out, I can't. It's not that I don't want to help, it's just, hey, wait, what are you doing? Mid-speech he stopped, his eyes going wide. Meng Hao had turned, looking closely at the gray spell. During the battle between Lord Revelation and Patriarch Reliance, spells in the area were damaged. They recovered slowly, but cracks remained, some large enough to be holes, slowly sealing. Within lay a mountain of spirit stones collected throughout Patriarch Reliance's life. Most were low-grade, but many were mid-grade, far more valuable. Without a word, Meng Hao slapped his bag. A wooden sword stabbed directly into the hole. The sword's spiritual absorbing ability manifested, and the spell shook, trying to repair but failing. The second sword stabbed in. The sword spread apart and the hole widened to the size of a child's hand. Normally, Meng Hao couldn't do this, but with cracks and holes in the spell, he had a chance. What are you doing? Echoed Patriarch Reliance's voice. He stared in shock. He loved displaying his treasures and watching people's eyes turn red as they looked but couldn't touch. He was supremely confident in his spells, connected to his life force, unbreakable unless he died. But strange properties in Lord Revelation caused problems when absorbed. The spells recovered slowly now, a slip-up on his part. Meng Hao, with that hole you can't take all of them, laughed Patriarch Reliance. Too many, won't fit. Well, I'm generous, take a few, I don't care. Meng Hao let out a cold snort. With the hole open, he reached into his robe and pulled out the bag of the cosmos, aiming it at the hole. His cultivation base surged. The mountain of spirit stones shuddered, then flew out one by one, sucked into the bag. Faster and faster, stones flew into the bag. Patriarch Reliance watched, horrified. A bag of the cosmos, damn it, how do you have that? Invisible to spiritual sense, can contain mountains and rivers. My stones, I spent my life accumulating them. Leave some for me. His agonized cry echoed and the ground quaked. He released power, yet the seal had just been placed. Meng Hao laughed coldly as Patriarch Reliance cried. The mountain shrank to a hill. Meng Hao vented his spleen. You dared rip me off, he thought. I'll rip you off more, clearing all your treasures. Meng Hao, you traitor, excessive. Patriarch Reliance felt his organs would explode. He wanted to burst the seal, but it was just placed, months before breaking it. He never imagined Meng Hao had a bag of the cosmos or could steal his lifetime accumulation. Patriarch Reliance felt a giant invisible blade rotating around him, slashing for every lost stone. As if being hacked to pieces, his heart ached. He'd always had a strange personality, a true weirdo compared to his generation. Greed and stinginess grew with his cultivation base and age. He had no aura of a powerful expert, no bottom line. Several hundred years ago, his first severing was enlightenment regarding greed, branded onto his spirit, part of his cultivation. Chapter 85, Ancient Demon Sealing Jade. Greedy and stingy, a miser to the core even in cultivation, this was his Tao. In enlightenment, treasures mattered most. They led to his first spirit severing. This was why his meditation zone had so many protected areas. His life savings. Accumulating was not a hobby, it was his Tao. Watching it vanish filled him with grief and indignation. Within 10 breaths, the mountain was gone. Even a jade piece beneath it was sucked in. My good luck charm, leave it behind. Before he finished, his eyes widened. After taking the stones, Meng Hao looked around, eyes gleaming. Patriarch Reliance trembled. Meng Hao's eyes looked like a master thief's. His gaze fell on a small courtyard. Behind a cracked spell was a variety of medicinal plants in many colors, clearly beyond ordinary. Meng Hao recognized some from Shang Yuanziu's treasured turtle shell. Striding forward, his fingers flickered and the 2 wooden swords appeared. They stabbed into a crack, which slowly widened. Meng Hao stealing treasured items too. I'm your patriarch. I paid a heavy price for that courtyard. Patriarch Reliance grew anxious. Rumbling grew stronger, but Meng Hao didn't blink, happy to vent. My divine plants, you're plucking them all. Patriarch Reliance's anger soared. My outlander tree, I cared for it hundreds of years before it sprouted, you can't. Amid his protests, Meng Hao cleared the courtyard clean as a razor. Everything went into the bag. When the swords withdrew, the courtyard looked swept by a gale. Enough, enough, said Patriarch hastily, looking at the emptiness. Listen, little Patriarch, leave some for me. Don't take more. You can't touch anything else. Meng Hao, listen to Patriarch, okay? Show respect for your senior, you. I've been like this since youth, said Meng Hao with a cold snort, throwing his words back. Looking around, he spotted a lone spell shield. Beneath it were 3 withered trees, but each bore a leaf that sparkled with energy arcs, appearing extraordinary. Meng Hao had never seen such things. Protected by a spell in Patriarch Reliance's zone, they had to be valuable. Eyes glittering, he strode over and stabbed the swords into a crack in the recovering spell. Those are thunderclap leaves, a lightning plant rare in the southern domain, Patriarch Reliance howled. Completely ignoring him, Meng Hao lifted the bag to the hole. The trees shook. The 3 leaves ripped off, transforming into black lightning arcs that shot into the bag. More infuriating, after the leaves entered, Meng Hao didn't stop. The trees swayed, then flew up, roots and all, sucked into the bag. Next to them was a purple flag also sucked in. You even ripped them out by the roots, really pissing me off. Meng Hao, you bastard, you took the lightning flag too. It only defends against Foundation establishment attacks but absorbs lightning. You need it to grow the leaves. Patriarch Reliance's heart dripped blood as he howled and cursed. I've always had a good temper, snorted Meng Hao, throwing the words back. You're Patriarch of the Reliance sect. We're the only people. I of the junior generation won't get angry. Many have cursed me over the years. Doesn't matter. He looked around again. Patriarch Reliance's heart seized. When Meng Hao's gaze passed another medicinal area, he let out relief. His meditation zone contained his life's treasures, but some were high quality, others low. Just don't touch my baby, thought Patriarch. Everything else is trifling, I can gather more later. His teeth clenched, his heart still dripped blood. The word trifling was forced. Within moments, Meng Hao cleared several more courtyards of plants, moving on. Patriarch Reliance could only clench his jaw, letting loose torrents of abuse. Cursing, never repeating himself more than half a sentence. As he cursed, Meng Hao hummed a little tune, a happy one, the same Patriarch Reliance had hummed earlier. When Patriarch Reliance heard it, he nearly coughed blood. The feeling was indescribable. He was experiencing the full repercussions of Meng Hao's wrath. Patriarch Reliance watched as Meng Hao looked around. When his gaze fell on a short wall, Patriarch's heart raced. He said furiously, "You bastard, too cruel. I didn't dispel your poison, that's all. I gave a reward. A low-grade stone is still a stone." Meng Hao had inspected most spells for cracks. Many were completely recovered here. He circled, eyes flashing. Suddenly, Patriarch Reliance stopped speaking. He'd taken about 30%, mostly plants. Wanting more venting, he made one more circle checking for damaged spells. Returning to the start, he frowned. Nothing special. He noticed a short wall and started walking toward it when Patriarch Reliance suddenly spoke again. All right, Meng Hao, my only heir." As Meng Hao walked toward the wall, Patriarch grew anxious, but his voice sounded emotional. "I'll dispel your poison, wait 3 months. I'll break out and take care of it, then give my treasures back. What do you say? Don't worry, I keep my word. I'll swear in the sect's name, I won't deceive you." Meng Hao stopped and looked at the ground. His eyes flickered silently. He walked around, lost in thought, eventually drawing close to the wall. "I never said I wouldn't dispel it," said Patriarch Reliance with a sigh. "Dispelling poison requires sacrifice of my cultivation base. I'd spend the energy I just absorbed." His voice seemed deep and profound, but seeing Meng Hao near the wall, his heart filled with acute nervousness. Meng Hao was silent. After several breaths, he suddenly spoke. "Why did you talk when I walked toward this wall, Patriarch? Why mention dispelling poison? Some special treasure hidden here?" As he spoke, Patriarch Reliance's eyes widened. He said the wrong things. He cursed Meng Hao for being so crafty. "Just trying to do the right thing," said Patriarch Reliance coldly. "Look, kid, you." Before finishing, Meng Hao jumped the wall. Patriarch Reliance's fear grew. His heart pounded, his face fell. After leaping, Meng Hao looked around. A restrictive spell was here. It didn't look special. Inside was a jade slip. The spell was incomplete with cracks. Meng Hao didn't hesitate. He flicked his sleeve, stabbing the swords into it. He pried open a hole and used the bag to retrieve the slip. Watching the slip disappear caused Patriarch Reliance to emit a shrill shriek. The ground shook so hard it nearly cracked. His earlier anger was nothing compared to this fury. "Meng Hao, you cannot take that slip. Even I don't dare touch it. It belongs to a friend who left it for safekeeping. You don't have the talent or destiny to touch it. Don't remove it." Paying no heed, he leaped onto a flying sword and flashed toward the exit. At the same time, he slapped the bag and pulled out the slip. Pressing it to his forehead, he cast spiritual power into it. His expression changed as 3 characters appeared in his mind, filled with demonic aura. "Demon Sealing Sect. Meng Hao, you bastard, get back. When I break through, you're finished," Patriarch Reliance howled. As the howl echoed, Meng Hao's eyes flashed. He stopped at the vortex mouth and looked back. His eyes glittered. Patriarch Reliance's heart thumped, a strange premonition filling it. In his heart and mind, Meng Hao was nothing but an out-and-out thief. This chapter was sponsored by Randall Klatt. Chapter 86, Demonic Lamps That Separate Heaven and Earth. Break through the seal. Meng Hao's eyes glittered as he glanced down at the 7 oil lamps on the ground. He looked at them for a moment, then shot toward them. He ignored the howls of Patriarch Reliance. After pillaging the treasures, he was certain the Patriarch wouldn't emerge. "What are you doing?" In his subterranean chamber, Patriarch Reliance's fury soared. However, seeing Meng Hao's expression, fear bloomed in his heart. He regretted letting him go. The look in his eyes surpassed even what appeared when Meng Hao began stealing his treasures. Ignoring the unreliable Patriarch, Meng Hao stared at the 7 lamps, walking slowly around them with a contemplative air. Every step he took seemed to land directly onto Patriarch Reliance's heart. "It doesn't matter," Patriarch Reliance said in an attempt to comfort himself. "This little bastard is only at the 9th level of chi condensation. He can't take any of the spiritual energy from the demonic lamps." His eyes went wide when he saw Meng Hao, after making a few circles around the lamps, sit down cross-legged to meditate. Meng Hao sat there, eyes flashing with hesitation before determination took hold. "Patriarch Reliance deceived me. Taking a few of his precious treasures isn't enough to calm me down. I'm going to take this spiritual energy as well. Then I will finally be able to relax." Meng Hao gritted his teeth when he thought about the single low-grade spirit stone the Patriarch had given him. And then there was the matter of the poison. As far as Meng Hao was concerned, not dispelling the poison had shoved him onto a road of hopelessness. Treasured items can't absorb the spiritual energy from the 7 lamps because they aren't sentient. Fine, I'll absorb it myself. He suddenly closed his eyes and rotated his cultivation base, attempting to breathe in the spiritual energy pouring out of the burning oil lamps. But no matter how he tried to absorb the spiritual energy, as soon as it left the oil lamps, it was sucked into the ground. Deep in his subterranean chamber, Patriarch Reliance let out a great sigh of relief. "Meng Hao, you little punk, whatever you try will be useless. Do you dare steal my spiritual power?" Patriarch Reliance let out a hearty, although somewhat bitter, laugh. When it reached Meng Hao's ears, he frowned for a moment. Then his face became calm again. "Don't get antsy, Patriarch," he said coolly. "I've only just begun." Patriarch Reliance stared in shock. Meng Hao's eyes, which he had just closed, moved about as he recalled the image of his battle with Xianxia Audiobook, and Little Tiger's Pearl, which had enabled him to reach the 10th level of chi condensation. This was the method he wished to employ. He would return to the 10th level of chi condensation. Even though the incredible power of the 10th level of chi condensation left him cut off from heaven and earth, Meng Hao wanted to see if it could enable him to absorb the spiritual power of the lamps. The legendary 10th level of qi condensation had existed in ancient times, but was now prohibited by the heavens cut off. But Meng Hao had reached the 10th level once before. He had walked the severed path. As he gathered his thoughts, his body gradually withered. The slender strand of spiritual sense in his head seemed to fill his thoughts. He sank into a strange and unusual state as he focused his entire being on remembering what it had been like to enter the 10th level of qi condensation. Time slipped by. A day, 2 days, then 3. Patriarch Reliance was growing more nervous. He couldn't quite tell what Meng Hao was doing, but could tell that his body was changing in a very strange way. "Just what are you doing?" he asked hesitantly. He couldn't discern what Meng Hao was doing. On the third night, a tremor shook Meng Hao. His eyes opened as his body trembled violently. Once again he felt power filling his body. He now could employ force strong enough to topple a mountain. At the same time, the powerful gravitational force once again appeared within him, and he was cut off from heaven and earth. At the moment, he couldn't absorb any of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. His eyes glowing, he slowly stood up, fighting to remain in this state. He knew that without Little Tiger's pearl, he could only hold this state for about 10 breaths before sinking back down. He took a deep breath and then took a step forward. As his foot fell, the spiritual power from the lamps quivered. One tiny strand drifted toward him instead of sinking into the ground, absorbed into his body. His eyes shone brighter. Patriarch Reliance's body trembled as astonishment filled his face. "Holy crap," he cried. "This is impossible. That's the 10th level of qi condensation. Wasn't the path severed by the heavens' will? You got to the 10th level of qi condensation." Patriarch Reliance let out a miserable cry as Meng Hao took 3 more steps forward. About 10% of the spiritual energy from the lamps rushed toward him. As he absorbed it, Patriarch Reliance howled even louder. "How is it possible? The damned 10th level of qi condensation isn't that awesome, but it was prohibited because it has the power to steal good fortune from the heavens. If it's strong enough to do that, then as for my spiritual energy, damn it. And what about my demon sealing Jade? Back then, those old bastards said that it could only be taken and used by someone who had reached the 13th level of qi condensation. This. After 3 steps, Meng Hao's body trembled too violently to continue. Boundless spiritual energy from the lamps rushed into him. Panting, he sat down and began to meditate, absorbing tremendous amount of spiritual energy. Patriarch Reliance could only howl angrily. The gravitational force was astonishing, like a starving wolf who hadn't eaten in years. Vast quantities of spiritual energy were sucked into him, and his body trembled more violently. He felt his physical body growing tougher and more powerful. It seemed as if even his bones were absorbing spiritual energy and becoming stronger. The ancient 10th level of qi condensation was a stage of refinement for the physical body. Now, in Patriarch Reliance's Immortal's Cave, he seized fortune and entered this ancient state. This level required lots of spiritual energy. Heaven and earth would not give it, but Patriarch Reliance had prepared a nascent soul and 6 cores as fuel, and life force as flame. The spiritual energy pouring out of the demonic lamps was the nutrition that Meng Hao needed. "Meng Hao, stop, let's discuss things a bit. I need that spiritual energy. I really need it. Do not absorb it. Damn it, cut it out, Meng Hao, that's my spiritual energy. I went to a lot of trouble killing all those people to get it. My seal, Meng Hao, if you don't stop, then I will expel you from the sect." Flustered and exasperated, Patriarch Reliance had already forgotten about the treasures Meng Hao had taken, as well as the demon sealing Jade. You could say that all the things taken by Meng Hao before couldn't compare at all with this. Meng Hao ignored him, absorbing spiritual energy frantically. His body grew stronger. Soon, cracking sounds echoed as his skin split and new flesh grew. More cracks spread and old flesh fell away. Meng Hao's hair grew longer, his eyes brighter. The 10th level of qi condensation was now solidified within his body. He would never lose the 10th level again. It was there permanently. In addition to the power of the 10th level of qi condensation, Meng Hao realized he had a new ability. If he wished, he could at will return to the 9th level of qi condensation to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and then return back to the 10th level. Some time passed, and Meng Hao's mind began to reel. The remnants of dried-up flesh which remained on his body turned into ash and drifted away. His eyes glowed even brighter, and an incredible feeling of power filled Meng Hao. He was completely confident that with the power of the 10th level of qi condensation, he could use a single fist to crush anyone of the 9th level of qi condensation. This power exceeded what little Tiger's Pearl had given him. Meng Hao took a deep breath and stood, not to leave but to take another step forward. He stood 5 paces from the lamps. Panting furiously, Patriarch Reliance cursed as Meng Hao absorbed even more spiritual energy. He had solidified his 10th level of Qi condensation, but moved on instead of leaving. Patriarch Reliance's heart pounded. Now, 13% of the spiritual energy emitted by the lamps was rushing toward Meng Hao. As the boundless amount of energy entered his body, a roaring sound filled him. His eyes were filled with determination. He took another step forward. He was now only 4 paces from the oil lamps. The flames flickered as even more spiritual energy flew toward Meng Hao. As of now, he was taking 16%. The gravitational force isn't dispersing, it's growing stronger. Is there an 11th level after the 10th? Gritting his teeth, he called upon the power of the 10th level of Qi condensation to take another step forward. He stood 3 paces from the lamps. The flames danced wildly as 20% of the spiritual energy was sucked up by Meng Hao. He took a deep breath, then sat down cross-legged to meditate.